Tonight, we will explore the quiet wisdom of sustainable service and the gentle art of caring for oneself. There is nothing you need to do, nothing to fix, no one you need to become. Simply allow yourself to rest, to settle into the quiet moments that unfold. If this path calls to you, I invite you to subscribe, to join us on these journeys of peace and understanding. Let us begin this journey together. Take a gentle breath now, feeling the air fill your lungs, and then release it, letting go of any tension. Feel your body supported, soft and still. In a village nestled beside a slow-moving river, where the scent of wild jasmine often drifted on the evening breeze, there lived a physician named Buddhist. The village itself was a haven of tranquility, its dwellings crafted from the earth's own bounty, wood, clay, and thatch, blending seamlessly with the verdant hills that rolled gently towards the horizon. Ancient trees stood as silent sentinels, their leaves whispering secrets to the soft wind, a sound that mingled with the distant murmur of the river and the gentle hum of unseen insects. In the mornings, the air carried the sweet perfume of wildflowers blooming by the forest path, and in the evenings, the comforting scent of wood smoke, a promise of warmth and hearth, settled over the quiet homes. Sunlight here was a painter, often casting warm, golden hues at dawn and dusk, softening to a diffused, gentle glow throughout the day, inviting introspection, a quiet turning inward, where wisdom could slowly unfurl like a lotus blossom on still water. Buddhist was a man in his late 30s, with a heart overflowing with an expansive, boundless compassion. His eyes, though kind, often carried the shadow of sleepless nights, a testament to his unwavering dedication. His hands, gentle in their touch, were calloused from mixing herbs and tending wounds, from the endless preparations of poultices and tinctures. He wore simple, practical tunics, often stained with remedies or streaked with mud from hurried calls, a silent record of his tireless journeys. Buddhist spoke softly, his voice raspy from exhaustion, yet always ready with a comforting word, a soothing reassurance, even when his own energy waned, even when his own spirit cried out for rest. He moved through the village like a ghost, a silhouette against the rising moon, his worn leather bag filled with the tools of his healing craft. His footsteps were light, almost imperceptible, yet they carried the deep weariness that settled in his very marrow. He attended to every cough, every fever, every scraped knee, every sudden chill that swept through the fragile bodies of the young and the old. He was there for the sharp pains of childbirth, the quiet aches of the elderly, the sudden illnesses that struck without warning. Buddhist believed, with an unwavering conviction that ran through his very veins, that his duty required constant availability, without pause, without rest. He was like a lamp burning ever brightly, offering its light to all who sought it, yet unaware of its own dwindling oil, consuming itself in its ceaseless offering. From the first pale blush of dawn, when the mist still clung to the riverbanks, Buddhist was already awake, already preparing remedies, already anticipating the day's calls. He would visit the homes of those recovering, checking their pulse, observing their breath, offering gentle encouragement. As the sun climbed higher, casting its diffused, gentle glow upon the village, he would walk to the small herb garden behind his simple dwelling, his movements deliberate but slow, gathering the plants he needed, his fingers brushing over the dew-kissed leaves. But even these moments of quiet labor were often interrupted by a child's cry, a hurried knock on his door, or a frantic whisper from a worried family member. And each time, Buddhist would set aside his task, his heart immediate, his feet already moving towards the need, never questioning, never hesitating. As evening descended, painting the sky in shades of gold and amber, Bhadia's work rarely ceased. While families gathered for their evening meals, and the sounds of laughter and quiet conversation drifted from open doorways, Bhadia would still be making his rounds. Sometimes, he would sit by the bedside of a feverish child, placing cool cloths on their brow, murmuring soft words of comfort until the fever broke, or until the first hint of morning light crept through the window. Other times, he would be kneading tired muscles, setting a fractured bone, or patiently cleaning a deep cut. His focus absolute, his attention unwavering, despite the growing ache in his own back, the persistent throb behind his weary eyes. He would often return to his own home in the deepest hours of the night, when the only sounds were the distant call of an owl and the soft rustle of leaves. The lamp in his window, a small beacon in the profound darkness, would often be the last one extinguished, only to be rekindled hours later. He would prepare for the next day, cleaning his tools, grinding fresh herbs, his mind still replaying the day's ailments, always planning, always anticipating, always striving to be ready for the next call, the next suffering. Sleep, for Bhadia, was a fleeting luxury, a mere pause before the next demanding moment. He would lie down, his body heavy with fatigue, only to find his mind still racing, still cataloging symptoms, still searching for new remedies, convinced that any moment of rest was a moment of failed duty, a precious instant where someone might be suffering without his aid. The villagers revered him, spoke of his kindness and dedication in hushed, grateful tones. They saw his unwavering commitment as the highest form of compassion, and Bhadia, in turn, accepted this unspoken expectation as his sacred truth. He equated self-neglect with virtue, believing that to truly serve, one must empty oneself completely, without reservation, without thought for one's own well-being. He feared that if he allowed himself to rest, if he set a boundary, even a small one, he would be found wanting, that his compassion would be deemed insufficient. This fear, subtle and unacknowledged, drove him ever onward, pushing his body and mind beyond their natural limits. Month after month, the cycle continued. The shadows under his eyes deepened, becoming almost a permanent feature on his kind face. His raspy voice grew softer, sometimes barely a whisper. His steps, though still light, became slower, more deliberate, as if each movement required a conscious act of will. The lamp of his own life, though still burning brightly for others, was consuming its own oil at an alarming, unsustainable rate. He could feel the constant hum of exhaustion beneath his skin, the persistent ache in his bones, the quiet slowing of his thoughts. Yet, he pushed it all aside, seeing it as a small price to pay for the boundless service he believed was his ultimate purpose. The village, serene and peaceful in its natural rhythms, remained largely unaware of the silent, internal battle Bhadia waged. They saw his presence, his care, his ceaseless giving. They did not see the moments when his hands trembled slightly as he measured herbs, or when his eyelids drooped involuntarily during a quiet consultation. They did not hear the silent plea of his own body for respite, for nourishment, for stillness. Bhadia's compassion was indeed boundless, a deep wellspring from which he drew without end. But the well itself was slowly, imperceptibly drying up. He continued to pour himself out, day after day, night after night, his belief in constant availability unwavering, his fear of failure ever present. He was so focused on alleviating the suffering of others that he failed to notice the suffering within himself, the growing fatigue that shadowed his every step, patiently, relentlessly setting the stage for an inevitable collapse. His story, like a quiet stream flowing towards a hidden waterfall, would soon reveal the profound truth that even the most compassionate heart cannot sustain itself if it ignores the fundamental need for self-preservation. For a lamp, no matter how bright, consumes itself if it burns without pause, without a moment to replenish its oil. The relentless cycle, day after day, week after week, had woven a deep, unspoken exhaustion into the very fabric of Padya's being. The hum beneath his skin, the persistent ache in his bones, the quiet slowing of his thoughts, these were no longer distant signals, but a constant, heavy presence. One late afternoon, as the sun began its gentle descent, painting the western sky in hues of soft peach and lavender, Padya was returning from a distant farm where he had spent hours tending to a child suffering from a virulent fever. His worn leather bag felt heavier than usual, each step a deliberate effort. The path, usually a familiar friend, now seemed to stretch endlessly before him, the dust rising in small, tired clouds with every shuffle of his feet. A gentle breeze, carrying the scent of damp earth and distant wood smoke, offered no solace. His eyes, usually keen and observant, were now blurred at the edges, the vibrant greens of the rice paddies merging into a hazy wash. He felt a strange lightness in his head, a detachment that was both unsettling and, in its own way, a fleeting escape from the constant demand of his mind. He tried to focus, to remember the remedies he needed to prepare for the morning, to recall the faces of those who would surely call upon him before dawn. But the thoughts drifted, like smoke in the wind, refusing to coalesce, refusing to hold. The path wound through a small grove of bamboo, where the air grew cooler and the rustle of leaves created a soft, rhythmic whisper. Padya leaned against a tall, slender stalk for a moment, just to catch his breath, just to steady the faint tremor in his hands. He closed his eyes, intending only a moment of stillness, a brief pause before resuming his duty. But the moment stretched, lengthening into something profound and unavoidable. The persistent throb behind his eyelids intensified, then softened into a dull, encompassing ache. The weariness, a patient companion for so long, now rose up, engulfing him completely. His body, that faithful instrument of his compassion, simply surrendered. Without a sound, without a struggle, Padya slid down the smooth bamboo stalk, his worn leather bag slipping from his grasp, his hands coming to rest, open and empty, on the cool earth. The soft rustle of the bamboo continued, a gentle lullaby in the fading light. He lay there, utterly still, utterly silent, his breath shallow, his kind, tired eyes closed to the world, the profound fatigue finally claiming its due. The lamp of his own life, having burned without cease, had, for now, gone dark. It was a wandering bhikkhu, a monk whose robes were the color of the earth and whose face held the serene wisdom of countless journeys, who found Padya as the first stars began to prick the deepening indigo sky. The bhikkhu was on his way to the village, seeking alms, and his quiet steps carried him along the path Padya had taken. He saw the still form, almost hidden amidst the bamboo, and approached with the soft, unhurried grace of one who moves in harmony with the world. Kneeling beside Padya, the bhikkhu gently felt his pulse, a weak, fluttering rhythm beneath his fingertips. There was no alarm in the bhikkhu's calm eyes, only a deep, quiet understanding. He sat, cross-legged, beside the fallen physician, his presence a still point in the twilight. He waited, patiently, as the last remnants of daylight faded and the sounds of the night began to awaken. The distant chirping of crickets, the soft call of an owl, the the continuous rustle of the bamboo. Eventually, as the moon, a slender crescent, emerged from behind the hills, Bhatia stirred. A soft groan escaped his lips, a whisper of discomfort. His eyes fluttered open, slowly, as if burdened by a great weight. He saw the bhikkhu, a silent figure cloaked in robes of earth and wisdom, sitting beside him, his gaze gentle and unwavering. Bhatia tried to push himself up, a sudden surge of his accustomed duty stirring within him, but his body refused, a leaden weight, unyielding. "Rest, good physician," the bhikkhu said, his voice soft, clear, and unhurried, like the murmur of a distant stream. "There is no need to hurry. The world will wait." Bhatia's brow furrowed, a faint echo of his usual concern. "But there are calls. There is suffering. I must attend to it." His voice was raspy, barely audible. The bhikkhu offered a small, knowing smile, a gentle curve of the lips that held no judgment. "Indeed, your heart is vast, Bhatia, a boundless ocean of compassion. Many have been blessed by your light." He paused, his gaze lifting to the pale moon, then to the faint, flickering light of a distant dwelling. "But tell me, Bhatia, what happens to a lamp that burns without pause, without a moment to replenish its oil?" Bhatia lay still, listening, the bhikkhu's words settling upon him like the cool night air. The question was simple, yet it resonated deeply, touching a truth he had long ignored. It consumes itself," he whispered, the words heavy with a dawning recognition. "It goes dark. And when it goes dark," the bhikkhu continued, his voice still soft, "can it still offer light to others? Can it still guide those who stumble in the darkness?" Bhatia closed his eyes again, not in exhaustion this time, but in a quiet reckoning. The image of the lamp, burning brightly, then slowly, inevitably, dwindling into nothingness, played in his mind. He had seen it in his own home, the small oil lamp he kept burning until the oil was completely spent, leaving only a faint, smoky scent and a dark wick. He had been so intent on giving, on being available, on alleviating every suffering, that he had become unaware of his own dwindling flame. His boundless compassion had, ironically, become a pathway to his own incapacitation. "To serve," the bhikkhu said, his voice a balm to Bhatia's weary spirit, "is to be a vessel. A full vessel can pour freely, offering its contents to all who thirst. But an empty vessel, no matter how pure its intention, can offer nothing. It is merely a container, hollow and dry." Bhatia felt a profound shift within him, not a sudden dramatic awakening, but a quiet unfurling, like a lotus blossom opening slowly to the morning sun. He had always believed that self-neglect was a mark of true compassion, that to prioritize his own needs, even for a moment, was a form of selfishness, a failure of his sacred duty. But now, through the bhikkhu's gentle words, he understood. Rest was not selfishness, it was wisdom. It was a necessary act to maintain his capacity, to ensure his vessel remained full, so that he could continue to pour forth his healing gifts. He spent the rest of the night in quiet conversation with the bhikkhu, not speaking of ailments or remedies, but of balance, of the rhythms of nature, of the delicate interplay between giving and receiving. He learned that even the great river, in its ceaseless flow, pauses in still pools, gathering its strength before continuing its journey to the sea. He learned that the earth itself, in its endless generosity, still requires periods of fallowness, of quiet repose, to replenish its fertility. As the first faint blush of dawn touched the eastern sky, painting the world in soft, hopeful hues, Bhatia felt a strength returning to his limbs, a clarity to his mind that had been absent for months. It was not the desperate energy of one driven by fear, but the quiet, steady power of one who had found a new understanding. In the days that followed, Padilla began to integrate small, deliberate moments of rest into his rigorous schedule. He began with something simple: a quiet half-hour in his herb garden each morning, not for gathering, but simply for being, for breathing in the fresh air, for feeling the sun on his skin, for allowing his mind to quiet. He would sit, observing the dew-kissed leaves, listening to the gentle hum of insects, allowing himself to be nourished by the stillness. At first, there was a subtle tremor of guilt, a whisper of his old fear that he was failing his duty. But with each quiet breath, the bhikkhu's words returned. A full vessel can pour freely. He also began to set a boundary, a gentle one, for the deep hours of the night. He would still respond to true emergencies, for his compassion remained boundless. But for the smaller concerns, the coughs that could wait until morning, the aches that were not urgent, he would gently ask families to wait until the first light. He found, to his quiet surprise, that the villagers, though initially accustomed to his constant availability, understood. They saw the renewed light in his eyes, the steadiness in his hands, and they respected his quiet wisdom. His care for others did not diminish. It became more focused, more effective. When he tended to a patient, his presence was more fully present, his touch more deliberate, his mind clearer, unclouded by the persistent fog of exhaustion. His voice, though still soft, gained a gentle resonance, carrying not just comfort, but a quiet strength. The remedies he prepared seemed more potent, his diagnoses more precise. He was still the kind, dedicated physician they knew, but now he was also a physician who nurtured himself, who understood that to truly serve, one must first ensure the lamp within oneself burns with a steady, sustainable flame. Padilla learned that self-preservation was not selfishness, but the very foundation of sustainable, impactful service. He understood that by nurturing himself, he cultivated an inexhaustible capacity to truly serve the world, not from a place of burden, but from a place of spacious, quiet strength. His journey had revealed that the wisdom of the middle way, of balance and mindful care, was not just for the monks and the sages, but for all who wished to offer their gifts to the world, enduringly and with joy. We will now gently pause, allowing this wisdom to settle within us. Take a slow, deep breath, feeling your chest rise and fall. And as you release it, feel any remaining tension in your body soften, like a leaf floating gently down a quiet stream. With each breath, let yourself grow a little heavier, a little softer, a little more at ease. In the next part of our journey, we will journey now to Puna, a man of immense strength and resolve, who dedicates 20 years of his life to building a magnificent bridge across a dangerous river. He works tirelessly, without pay, driven by a vision of connection and safety for his community. Yet, in his grand endeavor, his own family struggles, neglected and unseen. The bridge, a symbol of his sacrifice, becomes a silent monument to his absence from those closest to him. Our journey now takes us to Puna, a man whose strength was as formidable as the ancient stones he moved, and whose resolve was as unyielding as the riverbed itself. Puna was in his early 40s, with shoulders that seemed to carry the weight of the world, and a gaze that held the steady, unwavering focus of a craftsman perfecting his art. His face was a map etched by sun and wind, by the grit of river dust and the salt of honest sweat. His hands, though capable of immense tenderness, were rough and scarred, bearing the silent testament of years spent shaping timber and moving stone. He wore sturdy, faded work clothes, often carrying the scent of damp earth and the fine powder of freshly cut rock, blending seamlessly with the very landscape he sought to transform. Puna lived in a village nestled on one bank of a wide, churning river. This river, though a source of life and sustenance, was also a dangerous barrier. Its currents were swift and treacherous, especially during the monsoon rains, often claiming lives and isolating communities. For generations, people had dreamed of a way to cross safely, to connect the two halves of the valley, to bridge the divide. It was a dream that had always felt just beyond reach, too vast, too daunting for any single person or even a single generation to undertake. But Puna was not just any man. He possessed a vision, clear and bright in his mind, of a magnificent bridge rising from the river's banks, a monument to connection and safety. He saw children playing freely on either side, merchants trading goods without fear, families visiting loved ones who were once separated by the perilous waters. This vision consumed him, filling his heart with a quiet, burning purpose. He believed, with every fiber of his being, that this bridge was his calling, his sacred duty to his community. And so, Puna began his monumental task. He announced his intention not with fanfare, but with the quiet determination that was his very nature. He gathered tools. He studied the river's shifting moods. He learned the strength of different timbers and the resilience of various stones. He knew this would not be a swift undertaking, but a life's work. Indeed, he dedicated 20 years of his life to this grand endeavor, without thought of pay, without expectation of reward, driven solely by the shimmering image of the completed bridge in his mind. From the first faint blush of dawn until the last sliver of twilight vanished behind the distant hills, Puna was at the riverbank. He would rise before the sun, his sturdy boots crunching on the dewy path, a simple meal of rice and dried fish already consumed. He would spend his mornings quarrying stone from the nearby foothills, his muscles straining, the rhythmic clang of his hammer echoing through the quiet valley. Each block of stone was painstakingly shaped, smoothed, and then, with immense effort, transported to the river's edge. He learned to work with the flow of the river, understanding its power, respecting its formidable nature, yet determined to tame a small part of it for the good of all. His afternoons were spent sinking deep foundations into the riverbed, a task that required not only immense physical strength, but also a profound patience. He would spend hours in the cold, swirling water, placing each stone with precision, ensuring the base of his bridge would be unshakable, enduring. He learned to read the subtle shifts in the current, to anticipate the floods, to understand the very language of the river itself. He chose only the stoutest timbers from the ancient forest, felling them with care, shaping them with reverence, knowing that each beam would bear the weight of countless footsteps, countless journeys. Years turned into a decade, and then two. The seasons cycled through their endless dance. The harsh winds of winter bit at his exposed skin. The searing sun of summer baked his back. The relentless rains of monsoon made the river swell and roar, often undoing days of his painstaking work. Yet, Puna persevered. He was a solitary figure, often seen silhouetted against the vast expanse of the sky, or hunkered down beside the water, his breath misting in the cool morning air as he toiled. Slowly, imperceptibly at first, the bridge began to take shape. Stone arches rose with graceful strength. Timber beams locked into place with a satisfying thud, a testament to his unwavering will. The villagers watched with a mixture of awe and quiet concern. They admired his dedication, his selfless pursuit of a common good. Children who had been infants when he began were now young adults, and they had never known a time when Puna was not at the river, building, ever building. The bridge became a part of the landscape, a slowly emerging miracle, promising a future of ease and connection. And yet, in his grand endeavor, in his boundless giving to the community at large, Puna's own family slowly began to wither in his absence. He had a wife, a gentle woman named Sarala, whose eyes once held a bright, eager light. He had 2 children, a son named Kanthaka and a daughter named Mala, who had once clung to his sturdy legs, eager for his stories and his playful presence. But Puna's days were consumed by the bridge. When he returned home at dusk, his body a heavy ache, his mind still filled with calculations of stone and timber, he had little left to give. He would eat his simple meal in silence, too weary for conversation, his gaze often drifting to the window, as if he could still see the river from his humble dwelling. His children, once so full of questions, learned to be quiet. They watched their father, this heroic figure who was building something magnificent for everyone else, yet who seemed a stranger in his own home. Sarala, his wife, tended to their small plot of land, keeping their home in order, raising their children with quiet fortitude. She understood Puna's vision, she respected his devotion, but a quiet sadness settled in her heart like dust. She remembered the early years of their marriage, the easy laughter, the shared dreams. Now, his dreams were for the village, for the bridge, and hers were often for a moment of his undivided attention, a shared glance, a simple word of affection. The fire in their hearth was warm, but the warmth between them seemed to cool, slowly, almost imperceptibly, over the long years. Kanthaka, his son, grew up learning to work the land, to mend fences, to take on the responsibilities that his father, consumed by the bridge, could not. He longed for his father's guidance, for his praise, for the simple act of throwing a stone into the river together. Instead, he watched his father disappear each morning, only to return a silent, exhausted shadow. Mala, his daughter, would often draw pictures of the bridge, imagining her father as a giant, creating something wondrous. But sometimes, her drawings would show a small, lonely figure on one bank and a family on the other, separated not by the river, but by the very bridge itself. The bridge, massive and majestic, grew steadily across the river. Its arches soared, its roadway widened, its presence became more and more dominant, a symbol of Puna's immense sacrifice. It was magnificent, truly, a testament to human will, to selfless dedication. It promised to connect communities, to save lives, to bring prosperity. And yet, for Puna, the bridge, in all its grandeur, became a silent monument to his absence from those closest to him. His family, once the center of his world, now felt like distant shores, fading from his view as he focused on the grand horizon. The erosion of their ties was not sudden or violent, but a slow, quiet drifting apart, like 2 boats untethered in the vast, silent sea. He had built a bridge for the world, but the small, intimate bridges within his own home, the bridges of connection and presence, had slowly, almost unnoticed, begun to crumble. The final stones were laid, the last timbers fitted. The bridge stood, strong and complete, an enduring arc of human endeavor against the timeless sky. The day of its opening was filled with joyous celebration, with music and laughter, and a deep sense of gratitude from all who lived in the valley. Puna stood on the completed bridge, looking out over the shining river, the fruit of 20 years of tireless labor. His heart swelled with a quiet pride, with the immense satisfaction of a dream realized. He had given his all. He had built it. He had connected the world. And yet, as the cheers of the crowd echoed around him, a subtle, almost imperceptible ache settled in his chest, a hollow whisper in the vast space he had created. He had given everything indeed. But at what cost, and to whom? We will now gently pause, allowing this wisdom to settle within us. Take a slow, deep breath, feeling your chest rise and fall. And as you release it, feel any remaining tension in your body soften, like a leaf floating gently down a quiet stream. With each breath, let yourself grow a little heavier, a little softer, a little more at ease. In the next part of our journey, we will explore the wisdom of bridging hearts, as a monk's simple question helps Puna to see beyond the magnificent structure he has built to the quiet needs of his own family. The cheers had faded, the last echoes of celebration drifting away with the twilight breeze. The villagers, their hearts full of gratitude, had returned to their homes, their lamps now flickering to life in the deepening dusk. Puna remained on the completed bridge, a solitary figure against the vast, star-strewn canvas of the emerging night sky. The great structure, so solid and real beneath his feet, felt both like an extension of his own being and a strange, silent question. The subtle ache he had felt earlier now resonated a little more clearly in the quiet space. He had given everything indeed, but at what cost, and to whom? As he stood there, lost in the quiet contemplation of his monumental achievement, a figure emerged from the shadows at the far end of the bridge. It was a wandering monk, his saffron robes faded with travel, his steps light and unhurried. He was an older man, with a serene face and eyes that seemed to hold the tranquil depth of ancient rivers. He carried nothing but a simple wooden staff and a small begging bowl, his presence radiating a profound peace that seemed to settle the very air around him. The monk approached Puna, his gaze gentle as he surveyed the magnificent bridge, then Puna himself, standing tall but weary. He offered a slight bow, a gesture of respect that Puna returned, though his mind still felt a little clouded by the day's events and the quiet emptiness that had begun to stir within him. A truly wondrous structure, the monk said, his voice soft, like the rustle of leaves in a quiet grove. It spans the river with such grace, such strength. For many years, you have labored, have you not? Puna nodded, his chest swelling with a familiar pride, yet still carrying that quiet, persistent ache. For 20 years, honored one, every stone, every timber, chosen and placed with my own hands. It was a perilous crossing before, many lives lost to the river's treacherous currents. But now, it is safe, it is strong. It will connect our communities, bring trade, and ensure safe passage for all. The monk listened patiently, his eyes unwavering, holding a deep, knowing calm. Indeed, a great gift you have bestowed upon this valley, a testament to your unwavering will and your boundless heart. And tell me, good Puna, who will cross this magnificent bridge you have built? Puna straightened, his voice gaining strength as he began to list, his pride momentarily eclipsing the subtle ache. Oh, all will cross it, honored one. The merchants with their goods, bringing prosperity to both banks. The travelers, no longer fearing the perilous crossing. The sick, who can now reach the healers more swiftly. The families, visiting their kin without fear of the current. The children, going to distant schools. The farmers, bringing their harvest to market. It is for everyone, for the entire valley. It is for the future. He gestured broadly, encompassing the vast invisible throngs he envisioned. The monk smiled, a gentle, knowing smile that reached his eyes. He paused, allowing Punna's words to settle in the quiet night air, before he spoke again. His voice was still soft, but now carried a weight, a quiet resonance that seemed to penetrate to the very core of Punna's being. "You have spoken beautifully, Punna, of all who will benefit, of all the connections you have forged across the wide river. And yet," the monk continued, his gaze now meeting Punna's directly, "you have built a bridge for others, while perhaps you have burned the bridge to your own family." The words, so gently spoken, struck Punna not like a blow, but like a sudden, unexpected shaft of moonlight piercing through a dense cloud. The pride that had swelled in his chest deflated, leaving behind an even deeper hollow. The subtle ache blossomed into a profound, undeniable truth. He stood there, frozen, the monk's words echoing in the vast space he had created, the very air around him suddenly still and heavy with meaning. Burning the bridge to your own family. The metaphor was simple, yet devastating in its clarity. It was not an accusation, but an observation, a mirror held up to his own life. He had focused so intently on the grand, visible act of service, on the monumental structure that would stand for generations, that he had failed to see the slow, quiet crumbling of the most vital connections, the ones closest to his heart. His mind drifted back, unbidden, to the faces he had known so intimately, yet had seen so little. Sarala, his gentle wife, her once bright eyes now often clouded with a quiet resignation. He remembered her patient acceptance, her unwavering support, even as she carried the burdens of their home and children alone, day after day. He remembered the moments he had returned home, too weary to speak, too consumed by the river and its challenges, and how her attempts at conversation had dwindled over the years, replaced by a quiet, understanding silence that now felt like a vast, lonely chasm. Then came the images of his children, Kanthaka, his son, growing from a small, eager boy to a young man, taking on responsibilities that should have been his father's, learning to work the land and mend fences, all without the guidance or shared laughter he had longed for. Punna remembered Kanthaka's wistful glances as he departed each morning, his quiet presence when he returned. He had seen it, dimly, even then, but had dismissed it as the natural process of a boy growing into a man, too focused on the grand vision of the bridge to acknowledge the longing in his son's eyes, and Mala, his daughter. He recalled her drawings of the bridge, how she had depicted him as a giant, a hero. But then, the sharper, more painful memory of her other drawings surfaced, the ones showing a small, lonely figure on one bank and a family on the other, separated not by the river, but by the very bridge itself. A child's innocent, yet profound perception of his absence. He had believed that boundless sacrifice was the path to virtue, that by giving his all to the community, he was fulfilling his highest duty. He had seen his family's quiet struggles as a necessary consequence, a small price to pay for such a magnificent achievement. But now, under the monk's gentle gaze, he understood. Sacrifice, when it abandoned those closest to him, was not virtue, but suffering. It was a burning, not a building. He had built a monument of stone and timber, but had left his own hearth cold, and his family's hearts aching for his presence. True connection, he realized with a quiet, profound ache, must begin at home. How could he speak of bridging communities if the most intimate bridges of his own life had crumbled? How could he claim to bring prosperity and safety to all if his own children felt neglected, if his wife carried a silent sorrow. The grand, visible acts of service, he now understood, were not inherently superior to the small, unseen acts of love and presence within one's own family. Indeed, the latter were the very foundation, the quiet strength from which all other service should flow. A man could not truly lift the world if his own home was collapsing around him. Punna stood there for a long time, the monk remaining silent beside him, allowing the truth to settle, to take root in the soil of Punna's weary heart. The night deepened, and the stars seemed to burn a little brighter, illuminating a path Punna had long overlooked. He had dedicated 20 years to connecting distant shores. Now he knew he must dedicate himself to mending the fractured paths within his own home. The next morning, Punna did not go to the bridge. For the first time in 2 decades, he stayed. He found Sarala in the small garden, tending to the herbs. He did not speak of the bridge, nor of the monk's words. Instead, he simply knelt beside her, his large, calloused hands gently helping her turn the soil, his presence a quiet, unexpected warmth. He listened as she spoke of the growth of the young sprouts, of the changing weather, of the simple rhythms of their small world. He truly listened, his gaze not drifting to the window, but fixed on her gentle face, seeing her, truly seeing her, for the first time in so long. Later that day, he found Kanthaka mending a broken fence post near the edge of their land. Punna walked over, his steps slow and deliberate. "May I help you, my son?" he asked, his voice a little rough from disuse, but filled with a new, quiet intention. Kanthaka looked up, surprised, then a flicker of something akin to hope, and perhaps a touch of apprehension, crossed his young face. Together, in the quiet afternoon sun, they worked. Punna taught him a forgotten knot, a technique for strengthening the post that he had learned in his early days of building. He did not just work, he shared, he taught, he connected. And with Mala, his daughter, he did not speak of the bridge. Instead, he sat with her by the hearth, watching the flames dance, and asked her about her drawings. He truly admired her vivid imagination, her ability to capture the world in color and line. He asked her to draw with him, not the grand bridge, but the simple, beautiful things of their home: the hearth fire, the sleeping cat, the moon outside their window. He watched her face light up with an eagerness he had not seen in years as he taught her to sketch the curve of a bird's wing, the texture of a leaf. These were not grand gestures, not monumental feats of engineering. These were the smallest, most personal bridges, built not of stone and timber, but of presence, of listening, of shared moments and gentle affection. They were often silent, these new bridges, built with a quiet understanding that grew between them, slowly, like morning mist lifting from a field, revealing the landscape anew. Punna continued to visit the great bridge, to ensure its upkeep, to share his wisdom with others who now crossed it. But his heart, once so solely fixed on the distant horizon, now held a deep, abiding warmth for the hearth fire, for the gentle touch of his wife's hand, for the quiet laughter of his children. He understood now that true service was not a grand, singular act of self-deprivation that abandoned one's immediate circle. It was a delicate balance, a constant tending to the small, intimate connections that nurtured the soul and allowed one to give to the wider world, not from a place of burden and absence, but from a wellspring of quiet, spacious strength. The bridge still stood, a testament to his strength, but now, for Punna, it was also a quiet reminder that while building outwards, one must never forget to build inwards, to keep the bridges of the heart strong and open. We will now gently pause, allowing this wisdom to settle within us. Take a slow, deep breath now, feeling the air fill your lungs, and then release it, letting go of any tension. Feel your body supported, soft and still. With each breath, let yourself grow a little heavier, a little softer, a little more at ease. In the next part of our journey, we will meet Visakha, the steadfast night watchman, whose unwavering vigilance and refusal of help lead him down a lonely path until a simple question illuminates the wisdom of sharing the light. The quiet understanding of balance, of building inwards as well as outwards, now settles within us. Like a gentle dew upon the leaves, we carry this wisdom as we turn our gaze to another corner of this tranquil land, to a village nestled by the curve of a wide, ancient river, where the rhythms of life were once bountiful, but now faced a season of profound scarcity. In this time of hardship, during a severe and relentless famine that stretched its lean fingers across the land, there lived a woman named Sumana. Sumana was the village's grain-keeper, a slender woman in her mid-30s, with a quiet grace that belied the immense burden she carried. Her large, compassionate eyes, usually soft with empathy, now held a constant, watchful sorrow as she witnessed the suffering of her people. Her hair was typically tied back with a simple cloth, and her robes, though plain and often worn, were always meticulously clean, a small testament to her ordered spirit amidst the surrounding chaos. The famine had swept through the lands like a hot, dry wind, scorching the fields, silencing the birdsong, and bringing a deep, gnawing hunger to every hearth. The communal granary, once a symbol of the village's prosperity, a storehouse of life sustenance, now echoed with a hollowness that seemed to reverberate through the very spirit of the community. Every day, the villagers would gather, their faces gaunt, their hopes flickering like starved flames, looking to Sumana for sustenance, for a sign of hope. And Sumana, with a heart as vast as the sky, gave. She gave with an unwavering devotion, a boundless generosity that knew no limits, no pause, no self-consideration. Her duty, as she understood it, was to distribute the village's meager stores with absolute fairness, ensuring that every soul received an equal, albeit small, share. She measured out the precious grains with steady, trembling hands, her movements precise, her focus absolute. For each family, a carefully weighed portion. For each child, a handful of life-sustaining rice. She ensured that no one was overlooked, that no one received less than another. Her commitment to equality, to the sustenance of her community, was her guiding star, her unwavering creed. But in this boundless giving, in her relentless pursuit of absolute fairness for all others, Sumana made a profound omission. She kept nothing for herself, not a single grain beyond the scraps that clung to the measuring scoop, not a single morsel to quiet the growing emptiness within her own stomach. She believed, with a fierce, quiet conviction, that true generosity meant absolute self-deprivation. To truly serve, she reasoned, one must give until nothing remained, until the vessel of oneself was utterly emptied. How could she take a share, even a small one, when so many others were suffering, when every grain was so desperately needed? Her own hunger, her own growing weakness, felt like a small, necessary sacrifice, a testament to the purity of her intentions, a badge of her unwavering compassion. Day after day, Sumana continued her tireless work. She rose before the sun, her body already aching, her mind clear only in its singular purpose, to distribute the grain. She walked to the granary, her steps growing lighter, more hesitant as the days wore on. The air grew thinner around her, The world seemed to lose its vibrant colors, becoming a muted, distant hum. Her voice, once soft and melodic, grew raspy and faint, barely a whisper as she called out names, as she offered words of comfort and encouragement to those who came to her. Her hands, once deft and strong, now trembled uncontrollably as she scooped the grain. Her movements slowed, becoming deliberate, almost dreamlike. The scent of the dry rice, once a comforting aroma, now seemed to mock the emptiness in her own stomach, a constant reminder of the nourishment she denied herself. She often found herself leaning against the cool, rough stone walls of the granary, her breath catching in her chest, a wave of dizziness washing over her. But always, she pushed through. Always, she found the strength, or rather, the sheer force of will, to continue. The villagers, themselves weakened by hunger, began to notice. They saw the increasing frailty in Sumana's slender frame, the way her robes seemed to hang ever more loosely upon her. They saw the faint blue shadows beneath her large, compassionate eyes, the way her steps faltered, the way she sometimes swayed gently as she stood by the scales. Some offered her a small portion of their own meager rations, a spoonful of rice, a crust of dried bread. But Sumana, with a gentle, almost pained smile, always refused. "No, my friends," she would whisper, her voice barely audible. "This is for you. Every grain is accounted for. It is my duty to ensure it reaches those who need it most." And in her mind, she was not among those who needed it most. Her needs were secondary, tertiary, indeed almost non-existent in her own estimation. The needs of the community, the needs of every other person, eclipsed her own entirely. She was like a river, flowing ceaselessly, generously, into every thirsty field and parched garden, never reserving a single drop for its own banks, for its own source. And slowly, imperceptibly at first, then with increasing certainty, the river began to run dry. Her dreams, when they came, were vivid and unsettling. She dreamt of overflowing bowls of rice, of fresh water bubbling from a spring, of plump, ripe fruits hanging heavy on branches. She would wake with a start, the vivid images fading into the stark, empty reality of her own hunger, the gnawing ache in her stomach, a constant companion. Yet, even in her dreams, she could not bring herself to consume the food. She was only ever distributing it, giving it away, watching it disappear into the hands of others. Her body, though resilient, began to betray her. Her vision blurred at times, her head swam with a constant, dull ache. The simple act of rising from her sleeping mat became an immense effort, a slow, deliberate struggle. She grew thinner and thinner, her bones becoming more prominent beneath her skin, her movements more deliberate, more fragile. She was like a delicate sapling, giving all its nourishment to the surrounding soil until its own leaves began to wither, its own trunk grew brittle. The granary, once a place of warmth and the rich smell of stored harvest, now felt cold and vast, a tomb of forgotten abundance. Sumana would sit on its cool stone floor, the silence of the empty space amplifying the quiet roar of hunger in her ears. She had given everything. She had emptied herself completely, just as she believed true generosity demanded. But now, even her own hands trembled, too weak to lift a small pitcher of water, too weak to offer even the slightest comfort to a crying child, too weak to even offer a reassuring smile. A profound weariness settled into her very bones, a weariness that went beyond the physical, touching the very essence of her spirit. She had envisioned herself as a vessel of endless compassion, endlessly pouring out for others. But now, the vessel was not just empty, it was cracked, fragile, almost transparent. She was barely able to stand, a wisp of a woman held upright only by the sheer force of her unwavering, yet ultimately self-destructive, devotion. The quiet, gentle strength that had once defined her was slowly, irrevocably slipping away, leaving behind only the shadow of an empty vessel. We will now gently pause, allowing this poignant image to settle within us. Take a slow, deep breath now, feeling the air fill your lungs, and then release it, letting go of any tension. Feel your body supported, soft and still. With each breath, let yourself grow a little heavier, a little softer, a little more at ease. In the next part of our journey, we will witness Sumana's profound encounter with the Buddha and the gentle wisdom that illuminates her path, revealing that even a vessel of compassion must first be filled. The quiet village, still wrapped in the lingering grip of the famine, continued its slow, painful struggle. Days blurred into weeks, each one a testament to the resilience of the human spirit, yet also a stark reminder of the deep well of suffering that permeated every home, every heart. Sumana, the grainkeeper, remained at the heart of this struggle, a silent, almost spectral figure moving through the communal granary. Her presence, once a beacon of steadfast compassion, now carried an aura of profound fragility, a quiet, heartbreaking testament to her boundless, yet ultimately self-consuming generosity. She would sit sometimes, slumped against the cool stone wall, her eyes, once bright with fervent purpose, now dulled by the ceaseless ache of hunger and fatigue. The silence of the empty granary pressed in on her, a vast, echoing space where once the rustle of grain had been a comforting song. She would trace patterns on the dusty floor with a trembling finger, lost in a quiet reverie, her mind drifting like a lone leaf on a still pond. The thought of the sparrow, which had flickered briefly in her mind weeks ago, now returned with a soft, persistent whisper. Even the sparrow must find its own nourishment to live, to fly. But she, Sumana, had denied herself even that most basic truth. She had believed that her purpose was to empty herself completely, to become a conduit through which all nourishment flowed to others, never to herself. And in doing so, she had become a dry riverbed, cracked and barren, unable to sustain even the smallest life within its banks. One morning, as the first gentle rays of dawn painted the eastern sky in hues of soft rose and pale gold, a quiet ripple passed through the village. A visitor had arrived, not with fanfare or proclamation, but with the quiet grace of a forest stream finding its way to the ocean. It was the Buddha, walking with serene dignity, his saffron robes a splash of calm warmth against the muted tones of the dusty path. His presence was like a balm, a gentle hush falling over the anxious whispers of the villagers. He moved with an unhurried pace, his gaze soft yet profoundly discerning, missing nothing, judging nothing. He walked through the market square, where a few meager stalls offered what little could be salvaged from the land. He greeted the villagers with a gentle nod, his smile a quiet blessing. And then, his steps led him, as if by an unseen thread, towards the communal granary, towards the very heart of the village's struggle, and towards Sumana. Sumana, caught in a moment of profound weakness, had slumped against the doorframe, her eyes closed, her breath shallow. The scent of dust and stale air filled her nostrils, a stark contrast to the rich, earthy aroma of grain she so deeply craved. She felt the warmth of the rising sun on her face, a fleeting comfort against the pervasive coldness that had settled deep within her bones. She was barely aware of the world around her, her senses muted by the all-consuming effort of simply existing. Then, a shadow fell over her, a gentle shadow, not dark or foreboding, but soft and luminous, like the passing of a cloud on a summer day. She opened her eyes slowly, blinking against the soft light, and saw him. Standing before her, radiating an immense, quiet calm, was the Buddha. His eyes, deep and compassionate, met hers, and in their gaze, Sumana felt an understanding that transcended words, a knowing that reached beyond her physical frailty to the very core of her being. There was no pity in his eyes, no judgment, only a profound, unwavering recognition of her suffering and of the path that had led her there. He knelt before her, his movements fluid and unhurried, bringing himself to her level. His voice, when he spoke, was like the gentle murmur of a distant stream, clear and soothing, yet carrying the weight of ancient wisdom. "Sumana," he said, his voice a soft caress on her weary spirit. "You have given much. You have poured out your compassion like an endless stream for all who thirst." Sumana, her voice a mere whisper, could only nod. "It is my duty, Blessed One, to give until nothing remains so that others may live." The Buddha's gaze remained steady, his wisdom radiating outwards like the gentle warmth of the morning sun. "Indeed, your heart is pure, Sumana, your intention noble. But tell me, my child, can a lamp continue to give light if its oil is completely consumed? Can a river flow to nourish the fields if its source runs dry?" Sumana looked at him, her frail mind struggling to grasp the meaning behind his gentle questions. She thought of the lamp, burning so brightly, consuming itself in its own generosity. She thought of the river, flowing outwards, ever outwards, until its own banks began to crack and wither. These were images she had seen, truths she had observed, yet somehow she had never applied them to herself. The Buddha continued, his voice softer still, yet resonating with undeniable truth. "You have become like a vessel, my dear Sumana, a beautiful vessel, crafted with love and devotion, designed to hold the most precious nectar of compassion. But you have poured and poured, without ever replenishing your own store. And now the vessel itself is empty, and more, it is cracked. Tell me, Sumana, how can an empty vessel pour? How can a cracked vessel hold anything at all?" Sumana felt a tremor pass through her, not of fear, but of profound recognition. The words settled deep within her, echoing the quiet confusion that had churned in her mind weeks ago. Even the sparrow must find its own nourishment to live, to fly. She had poured herself out completely, and now she had nothing left to give, not even to herself. The Buddha's words were not a rebuke, but a gentle illumination, a soft light shining into the darkest corners of her misunderstanding. "You cannot pour from an empty vessel, Sumana," the Buddha reiterated, his voice a quiet affirmation. "Fill yourself first, nourish your own being, and then, from that replenished wellspring, give. For true generosity is not self-destruction, but sustainable abundance. It is the wisdom of maintaining the capacity to continue giving, not depleting oneself in a single, unsustainable gesture." Sumana closed her eyes, tears, silent and slow, tracing paths down her hollowed cheeks. Not tears of sorrow, but of release, of a deep, quiet understanding finally blossoming in her weary heart. She saw, with stark clarity, the path she had taken, and the precipice upon which she now stood. Her unwavering devotion, her boundless compassion, had led her to the brink of her own undoing. She had believed that self-deprivation was the purest form of service, but she now understood, with a profound, undeniable certainty, that destroying oneself served no one. A lamp, consumed, gives no light. A river, run dry, nourishes no fields. An empty vessel, cracked and frail, can pour nothing. The Buddha watched her, his presence a steady anchor in her moment of quiet reckoning. He offered no further words, allowing the truth to settle, to take root in the fertile ground of her newly opened understanding. Slowly, imperceptibly at first, a shift began within Sumana. It was not a dramatic transformation, but a gentle turning, like a sunflower slowly reorienting itself towards the sun. With the Buddha's blessing, and with the quiet, compassionate urging of the villagers who had witnessed her decline, Sumana began the slow, arduous process of caring for herself. She accepted the small portions of food offered to her, not with reluctance, but with a newfound humility and gratitude. Each morsel was a tiny act of self-care, a conscious choice to replenish the vessel, not just for her own sake, but for the sake of her future capacity to serve. She rested. She allowed herself moments of stillness, moments where she simply was, without the constant pressure to give, to do, to sacrifice. The quiet whispers of her own body, once ignored, now became gentle guides, signaling needs she had long denied. It was a slow journey, a painstaking rebuilding of strength, both physical and spiritual. The process was not without its challenges. The ingrained habit of self-neglect was a deeply worn path in her mind, and often the old impulses to deny herself would resurface. But each time, the Buddha's words, "You cannot pour from an empty vessel. Fill yourself first, then give," would echo in her memory, a soft, guiding refrain. Gradually, the color began to return to Sumana's face, a faint blush of life reclaiming its rightful place. Her steps, once hesitant and faltering, grew steadier, more purposeful. The light in her large, compassionate eyes, once dimmed by exhaustion, slowly rekindled, shining with a newfound clarity and depth. She began to take her own rightful share of the communal grain, a small yet profoundly significant act of self-preservation. She understood now that this was not selfishness, but wisdom. It was the foundation upon which her continued service would rest. Her hands, though still slender, regained their strength, scooping the grain with a renewed steadiness. Her voice, once a whisper, grew clearer, imbued with a gentle authority that came not from force, but from a grounded sense of well-being. She returned to her duties, not with the frenzied, desperate energy of one emptying herself, but with the calm, measured grace of one drawing from a deep, replenished well. The villagers noticed the change. They saw not just a healthier Sumana, but a Sumana whose compassion felt even more profound, more sustainable. She was no longer a fleeting stream, giving all until she ran dry. She had become a true reservoir, a deep, calm lake from which water could be drawn endlessly, patiently, because its source was constantly renewed. Her spirit, once stretched thin and transparent, was now vibrant and full, a testament to the quiet wisdom that true giving flows not from an empty vessel, but from a full and overflowing heart. By nurturing herself, Sumana had cultivated an inexhaustible capacity to truly serve the world, not from a place of burden, but from a place of spacious, quiet strength. We will now gently pause, allowing this image of replenished strength to settle within us. Take a slow, deep breath now, feeling the air fill your lungs, and then release it, letting go of any tension. Feel your body supported, soft and still. With each breath, let yourself grow a little heavier, a little softer, a little more at ease. In the next part of our journey, we will travel to a different village, where we will meet Upali, the earnest teacher, and explore the subtle balance between communal service and personal responsibility. As the gentle rhythm of your breath settles, let us now journey to another quiet corner of this timeless land, to a village nestled deep in a valley, where the nights were often long and silent, save for the whisper of the wind through the tall grass and the steady, watchful steps of a man named Visakha. Visakha was the night watchman, a man nearing 50, tall and lean, with the watchful, slightly hunched posture of one constantly on alert. His hair was streaked with silver, catching the faint moonlight like spun silk, and his eyes, though sharp and piercing, often carried the heavy shadow of profound fatigue. He wore practical, dark clothing, woven from rough homespun, designed to blend seamlessly into the deeper hues of the night, making him almost a part of the shadows he guarded. His voice, when he spoke, was low and steady, accustomed to quiet vigilance, a voice that carried the weight of countless silent hours spent under the vast, star-strewn sky. For many years, Visakha had dedicated himself wholly to this sacred duty. Every night, as the last embers of the communal fires died down and the village settled into the deep, restorative slumber of the night, Visakha would begin his solitary rounds. His path was well worn, tracing the perimeter of the dwellings, circling the communal granary, pausing by the river's edge where the water murmured its ancient song. He carried a simple lantern, its soft glow a small, defiant orb against the encroaching darkness, illuminating only the ground immediately before his feet. He believed, with an unwavering conviction that had settled deep into his very bones, that only he could truly keep the village safe. His personal vigilance, he was certain, was indispensable. He had cultivated a keen sense for the subtle shifts in the night, the sudden rustle that was not the wind, the faint distant sound that was not the call of a night bird. His senses were finely tuned instruments, constantly scanning, constantly alert. He knew every creak of every dwelling, every shadow cast by every ancient tree. This was his domain, his solitary vigil, and in it, he found a profound, if lonely, sense of purpose. Offers of help, when they came, were always gently but firmly refused. Younger men, eager to contribute, would sometimes approach him, asking to share his burden, to take a few hours of the watch. Visakha would smile, a tired, almost pitying smile, and shake his head. "The night has its own language," he would say, his voice a low murmur, "and only I have learned to truly understand it. Others would only stumble, and in their stumbling, perhaps alert those who wish us harm." He saw asking for assistance as a sign of weakness, a failure in his unique, vital responsibility. To him, to share the watch was to dilute its effectiveness, to compromise the very safety he pledged to uphold. His pride, though unspoken, was a powerful, silent force, preventing him from ever truly letting go, from ever truly trusting another with the sacred trust of the sleeping village. And so, night after night, season after season, Visakha walked his rounds. The lonely hours stretched into an endless river of darkness, punctuated only by the slow, stately march of the stars across the heavens. The cool night air would often carry the scent of damp earth after a gentle rain, or the delicate perfume of wildflowers blooming by a forest path. But Visakha barely noticed these gentle fragrances. His mind was a fortress, constantly on guard, constantly sifting through the sounds and silences, searching for any anomaly, any hint of threat. The creeping fatigue, however, was a relentless adversary. It was not a sudden, overwhelming wave, but a slow, insidious tide, rising higher with each passing night, each unrested day. In the early hours of his watch, as the moon climbed higher, his steps would be purposeful, his gaze sharp and unwavering. But as the night wore on, as the stars began their slow descent towards the western horizon, the weariness would begin its relentless assault. First, it would be a subtle heaviness behind his eyes, a faint blurring at the edges of his vision. Then, his steps would grow a fraction slower, his shoulders a little more hunched, or he would find himself leaning for longer moments against the ancient, moss-covered stone walls of the village, his body seeking any fleeting support, any temporary respite from the endless standing and walking. A deep ache would settle in his bones, a dull throb in his lower back, a constant reminder of the physical toll his unwavering dedication exacted. His mind, once so sharp, would sometimes wander, drifting to half-forgotten memories, or to the quiet warmth of his own small dwelling, where his palate lay empty and untouched. He would shake his head, a small, almost imperceptible gesture to clear the fog, to pull himself back to the immediate present, to the sacred duty that was his alone. He would tell himself, over and over, that the village depended on him, that his vigilance was their shield, his sleeplessness their peace. Sometimes, in the deepest part of the night, when the silence was so profound, it seemed to hum, a profound loneliness would settle upon him. He was the only one awake, the only one standing guard. Everyone else was dreaming, safe and warm in their beds, unaware of the silent protector who walked the edges of their world. This loneliness, however, was not a weakness he allowed himself to dwell upon. It was, in his mind, simply a part of the burden, a necessary sacrifice for the greater good. It was the price of his indispensable service. The weight Visakha carried was immense, a silent, invisible cloak woven from responsibility and pride. He bore it without complaint, without ever truly acknowledging its crushing pressure, even to himself. He saw his constant presence, his unwavering dedication, as the very essence of protection. He was the immovable rock against the tide of potential danger, the unblinking eye in the vast darkness. But even the strongest rock, when subjected to constant, relentless pressure, will eventually begin to show the signs of strain, and even the most watchful eye, when denied the profound healing of true rest, will eventually grow dim. The creeping fatigue was slowly, subtly, eroding the very foundation of his vigilance. There were moments now, fleeting and quickly dismissed, when his awareness would waver, when a sound might go unnoticed for a beat too long, when a shadow might seem to hold a shape that was not truly there. His mind, once a fortress, was beginning to show the faint, almost imperceptible cracks of weariness. He would sometimes catch himself, in the quiet, pre-dawn hours, leaning against a tree, his eyes closed for a fraction longer than intended, a soft, involuntary sigh escaping his lips, a shiver, not just from the cold night air, but from a deeper internal chill, would pass through him. He would quickly straighten, his jaw tightening, forcing himself back to the present, back to the duty he believed only he could perform. He pushed through the aches, the mental fog, the insistent whispers of sleep, convinced that to yield, even for a moment, would be to fail. The stars, which had once been silent companions, now seemed to mock his endless vigil, their distant, unblinking eyes mirroring the exhaustion in his own. The slow movement of the moon, once a comforting marker of the passing hours, now felt like a cruel, unending progression. Each night became a new battle, each dawn a hard-won victory against the encroaching tide of his own body's desperate need for rest. Visakha continued his rounds, his lantern casting its small, trembling circle of light, a testament to his unwavering commitment. But beneath the surface of his steadfastness, the immense weight of his solitary burden was growing heavier, more precarious. The village slept on, peacefully unaware of the fragile, exhausted thread upon which their safety now quietly, subtly hung. The unwavering dedication of their watchmen, once a source of strength, was slowly, imperceptibly, becoming a source of quiet, impending vulnerability. But the unrelenting pressure, the endless, unyielding demand of night after night, slowly, insidiously, began to take its toll. The faint, almost imperceptible cracks of weariness that had begun to form within Visakha's mind slowly, subtly, deepened. He had pushed through the aches, the mental fog, the insistent whispers of sleep for so long, convinced that to yield, even for a moment, would be to fail. But even the most determined will has its limits. One night, as the moon, a sliver of pale silver, began its slow descent towards the western horizon, and the air grew heavy with the dew of approaching dawn, Visakha found himself leaning against the ancient, moss-covered stone wall, his eyes closed. He intended it to be for a mere moment, a brief, fleeting respite, to clear the persistent haze that clouded his vision. But the moment stretched. The profound silence of the village, usually a canvas for his acute hearing, became a heavy blanket, muffling the subtle shifts of the night. His breath, which he had so long held captive, now escaped in a slow, deep sigh. And in that sigh, in that profound, unbidden surrender to the body's desperate plea for rest, Visakha finally, deeply, slept. His sleep was not a peaceful one, but a heavy, dreamless descent into utter exhaustion. His vigilance, for the first time in countless years, was utterly extinguished. The small, flickering flame of his lantern, which usually danced with his every step, now stood still, its light casting a solitary, unwavering circle on the cobblestones. The village slept on, unaware that its unblinking eye had finally closed. As the first faint blush of dawn began to paint the eastern sky, soft hues of rose and lavender stretching across the heavens, Visakha jolted awake. It was not a sudden noise that roused him, but the internal alarm of a duty unfulfilled, a time passed in unconsciousness. His heart hammered in his chest, a frantic drum against his ribs. He blinked, the fog of sleep still clinging to his mind, but a cold, sharp dread pierced through it. He had slept. He had truly, deeply slept. He straightened, his muscles stiff and protesting, and began his final round, his steps now heavy with a terrible premonition. The air was cool, fresh with the promise of a new day, but for Visakha, it tasted of ash. He scanned the familiar lanes, his eyes, though still tired, now searching with a frantic intensity. Nothing seemed amiss at first. The houses stood silently, their windows dark. The communal well stood pristine. But then, as he approached the edge of the village, near the humble, open-sided shed where the communal tools and a few sacks of harvested grain were kept, his gaze snagged. The simple wooden latch, usually secured, was hanging loose. The door, which he had personally checked just hours before, was ajar, a dark, gaping mouth in the pale light of dawn. Visakha's breath hitched. A cold, sickening wave of shame washed over him, a deeper chill than any night air had ever brought. He pushed the door open further, his heart sinking with each step into the shadowed interior. It was not a great theft, not a violent intrusion that would have shattered the village's peace, but it was a theft nonetheless. 2 sacks of the communal grain were gone, leaving behind only the faint impression of their weight in the dust. A few newly sharpened farming implements, tools for the day's work, were also missing. The actual loss was small, easily replaced. But the loss of his vigilance, the breach in the safety he had so fiercely guarded, was immeasurable. His shield had fallen. His unblinking eye had closed. The village had been vulnerable because he had failed. The crushing weight of his perceived failure settled upon him, heavier than any physical burden he had ever carried. He sank to the ground, his back against the rough wooden wall of the shed, his face buried in his hands. The morning light, which usually brought him the relief of a duty completed, now felt like a harsh, accusing glare. His pride, once a silent, powerful force that had driven his solitary service, now lay shattered, exposing the raw, aching wound of his exhaustion. He had believed himself indispensable, the immovable rock, but the rock had cracked as the sun, a warm, gentle orb, began to rise fully over the eastern hills, painting the world in shades of soft gold. An elder approached. She was a woman with eyes like still pools of deep wisdom, her face etched with the quiet lines of a life lived thoughtfully. She often walked to the river at dawn for her morning prayers, and her path led her past the communal shed. Her steps were slow, her presence gentle, like the quiet unfurling of the lotus at first light. She saw Visakha slumped against the wall, not from the familiar fatigue of his vigil, but from a deeper, more profound despair. She did not need to be told of the missing grain, the open door. The silent language of the village always spoke clearly to her. She knelt beside him, her soft, worn robe rustling faintly on the dusty ground. She did not offer words of comfort, nor did she speak of the missing items. Instead, her voice was soft, like the morning mist that still clung to the low-lying fields, a voice that carried no judgment, only quiet understanding. "Visakha," she said, her gaze lifting to the fading night sky where a sliver of the moon still hung, pale beside the newly risen sun. "You have watched over us well. For many years, you have believed that the night has its own language, and only you have learned to truly understand it." Visakha nodded, a grunt of tired, defeated acknowledgement. "It is true," he murmured, his voice hoarse, thick with self-reproach. "And I have failed. While I slept, others came. The village was not safe because of me." The elder was quiet for a moment, her gaze still fixed on the interplay of light and fading darkness in the sky. She breathed in deeply, the scent of damp earth and awakening life filling her lungs. "Indeed," she replied, her voice calm and unhurried. "And yet, even the sun, so bright and powerful, accepts the moon's help with lighting the world. Does it not? Even the sun does not insist on shining alone through every hour." Visakha looked up, his eyes red-rimmed and heavy, following her gaze to the pale, vanishing moon, then to the emerging sun, now warm and strong in the sky. He had never considered it this way. The sun, so mighty, so essential, did not insist on shouldering the entire burden of light through every single moment of every single day and night. It yielded to the moon, allowing it to take its turn, to share the sacred duty of illuminating the world. He sat in silence, the elder's words settling over him, not as a reprimand, but as a gentle, penetrating truth. He had seen his refusal of help as strength, as a unique and vital responsibility, but now, in the stark, painful light of his failure, he began to see it differently. His pride, which had made him believe only he could truly see the shadows, had also created a barrier. It had prevented others from contributing, from learning, from growing into their own capacity to serve. In his insistence on bearing the burden alone, he had inadvertently weakened the very community he sought to protect. He had kept the light of vigilance to himself, and in doing so, had sometimes let the darkness win. The realization was not a dramatic burst, but a quiet, internal shift, like the slow turning of a great river stone. revealing a hidden, glistening surface. He had sought to be the sole protector, a single, unwavering beacon. But the elder's words offered a different vision, a shared light, a collective vigilance, many eyes and many hands working together, making the whole far more resilient than any single individual could ever be. His refusal of help had not been strength, but a subtle form of arrogance, disguised as boundless service. That day, as the sun climbed higher, casting away the last vestiges of night, Visakha did something he had never done before. He did not simply lament his failure, nor did he retreat into his solitary vigil. Instead, he sought out the younger men of the village, those who had, in earlier times, gently offered their assistance, only to be turned away. He found them working in the fields, their backs bent under the morning sun. He approached them, not with a plea for help, but with an invitation, a shared purpose. "The night has its own language," he said, his voice softer, less gruff than they remembered. "And I have spent many years learning its whispers. But it is a language that can be taught. It is a language that can be shared." And so, Visakha began to share his duty. He did not simply hand over a portion of his watch, but meticulously, patiently, he taught. He showed them the quiet rhythms of the sleeping village, the subtle shifts in the wind, the distinct calls of the night birds that marked the passage of time. He taught them to distinguish the rustle of a wild animal from the stealthy tread of a human intruder. He walked the rounds with them, pointing out the shadows that concealed, the paths that offered easy access, the weak points in the village's defenses. He shared his observations, his wisdom accumulated over years of lonely vigil. Slowly, carefully, a small group of younger villagers began to learn the sacred trust of the night watch. They took on a few hours each, their enthusiasm fueled by Visakha's newfound willingness to guide and mentor. The burden, once borne by one weary man, now began to be distributed among many willing shoulders. The change in Visakha was profound. The deep ache in his bones, the dull throb in his lower back, began to recede. The constant, creeping fatigue that had shadowed his every step slowly lifted. He found himself able to rest, truly rest, during the hours when others took up the watch. And in that rest, his mind, once so clouded by exhaustion, began to clear. His gaze, though still sharp, now held a new warmth, a sense of quiet contentment he had not known for years. The shared burden lightened not only his body, but his spirit. He discovered a new kind of connection with his community, not as a solitary protector, but as a teacher, a guide, a part of a larger, stronger whole. The village, once reliant on the single, faltering thread of his individual vigilance, now had many eyes, many ears, many hands. Its collective safety was strengthened, woven into a more resilient tapestry of shared responsibility and mutual trust. The night was no longer an endless solitary battle, but a watch shared, a duty embraced by the community itself. Visakha learned that true strength was not in carrying every burden alone, but in empowering others to share the load. He found that by allowing the moon to take its turn, the sun itself could shine more brightly, more consistently, more sustainably. And in that quiet understanding, he found not only his own peace, but a deeper, more profound way to serve the village he so dearly loved. His story is a gentle reminder that sometimes, to serve truly, to offer our best light to the world, we must first learn to lean, to share, to trust in the collective strength that blossoms when we allow others to contribute, allowing our own light to be refreshed and renewed. Let us take a gentle breath now, feeling the air fill our lungs, and then release it, letting go of any tension. Feel your body supported, soft and still. We will now turn our attention to the story of Gosaka, the generous potter. A man whose heart was as open and expansive as the wide blue sky above the village. Gosaka, a robust man in his late 40s, carried a cheerful spirit, a warmth that radiated from him like the heat from his kiln. His face, though etched with the lines of worry common to any craftsman, still held a bright spark of artistic passion, a quiet joy in the act of creation. His hands, rough and strong from years of shaping the earth, moved with a practiced artistry, coaxing beauty from the formless clay. He wore a simple, smudged apron over his tunic, a testament to his constant engagement with his craft, a badge of his devotion. Gosaka's workshop was a place of quiet industry and fragrant earth. The air within it often hummed with the soft whir of his potter's wheel, the gentle slap of wet clay, and the low, steady crackle of the firing kiln. Shelves lined the walls, laden with vessels of every shape and size, sturdy cooking pots, delicate bowls for rice, elegant vases adorned with simple, graceful patterns, and sturdy jars for water or oil. Each piece bore the unique touch of Gosaka's hands, infused with his spirit of dedication and care. He loved his craft deeply, finding immense satisfaction in transforming humble earth into objects of both beauty and utility. But more than his love for pottery, Gosaka possessed an even greater love, the love of giving. His heart was so vast, so overflowing with compassion, that he found his greatest joy not in selling his wares, but in offering them freely to anyone in need. He believed, with unwavering conviction, that true generosity meant giving without reservation, without thought for his own sustenance or the future of his workshop. He believed that to give until nothing remained was the purest, most virtuous form of service. If a new family arrived in the village, bewildered and without possessions, Gosaka would greet them with a welcoming smile and a sturdy set of pots and bowls, beautifully glazed and ready for use. "Welcome, friends," he would say, his voice warm and open. "May these vessels bring you comfort and good fortune in your new home." He would wave away any offers of payment, his eyes twinkling with a gentle refusal. "The joy of your welcome is payment enough," he would insist. When a young couple was to be wed, and their humble dwelling lacked the vessels for their new life together, Gosaka would present them with a carefully chosen set of his finest pottery, a gift to mark their new beginning. "May your union be as strong as this clay, and your days as full of beauty as these vessels," he would tell them, his voice resonating with heartfelt sincerity. He never expected anything in return, not even a simple word of thanks, though gratitude flowed freely towards him. If the communal kitchen needed new pots, or the temple required fresh incense burners, Gosaka was always the first to step forward, offering his skill and his finished pieces without a second thought. His workshop became not merely a place of commerce, but a wellspring of quiet giving, a place where generosity flowed as freely as the river that wound through the valley. The villagers revered him, speaking of his boundless heart, his hands that crafted not just clay, but kindness itself. Gosaka found a deep, abiding happiness in these acts of giving. Each time he saw a family cooking in one of his pots, or water being carried in one of his jars, his heart swelled with a quiet contentment. This, he thought, was the purpose of his craft, the meaning of his life, to create beauty, and then to give it away, freely and completely. He worked tirelessly, shaping, firing, glazing, always striving to create more, to have more to give. But as the days turned into weeks and the weeks into months, a subtle shift began to occur, a quiet erosion that Gosaka, in his expansive generosity, failed to notice. The piles of raw clay in the corner of his workshop began to dwindle, and the sacks of fine sand for tempering grew lighter. He found himself mending his old tools more often, rather than replacing them with new ones. His smudged apron grew more threadbare, and his simple tunic, once merely practical, now began to show signs of wear and tear that went beyond the honorable marks of a working man. He would often find himself needing more wood for the kiln or fresh glazes, or even just enough rice for his own evening meal. He would borrow a small sum from a neighbor or promise a future pot in exchange for supplies. These were small things at first, easily overlooked in the grand scheme of his giving. A temporary need, he would tell himself, easily remedied once I have fired a new batch. But the new batches were always given away, and the debts, though small, began to accumulate, like tiny grains of sand slowly forming a mound. His family, too, began to feel the silent strain. His wife, a quiet woman who understood the depth of his heart, would mend their children's clothes with a sigh, her gaze often resting on the dwindling stores in their own larder. She never complained, knowing the goodness that drove Gosaka, but a subtle worry began to cloud her gentle eyes. Their children, though proud of their father's reputation for kindness, sometimes went without the small treats or new sandals that other village children enjoyed. They loved their father, but they also felt the quiet pinch of his boundless, unthinking generosity. Gosaka, however, remained largely oblivious to these mounting practical difficulties. His mind was always focused on the next act of giving, the next family in need, the next beautiful vessel to craft and bestow. He saw the needs of others so clearly, felt the tug of their suffering so deeply, that his own needs and the needs of his family became invisible to him. He considered them secondary, almost irrelevant, to the greater purpose of his boundless giving. He believed that to consider his own sustenance would be a selfish act, a betrayal of the very spirit of generosity. The whispers in the village began to change, subtly at first. Gosaka is so kind, people would say, their voices filled with admiration. But he looks a little thinner, doesn't he? Or, he gave away his last set of bowls, and now his own children eat from chipped plates. The admiration remained, but it was now laced with a quiet concern, a bewildered sadness for a man who gave so much of himself that he forgot to keep enough to sustain the very act of giving. One day, Gosaka found himself with no raw clay left. The shelves in his workshop, once overflowing, now stood bare, collecting dust. The woodpile for the kiln was empty. He had given away his last finished pot to a family whose home had been damaged by a sudden storm, leaving him with nothing. He looked at his hands, once so busy, so purposeful, now resting empty on his knees. He looked around his workshop, the place that had once hummed with life and creation, now silent. Still, he had promised a neighbor a large water jar in exchange for a bag of rice, but he had no clay to make it. He had promised the temple new offering bowls, but he had no materials to craft them. His debts, once small and seemingly temporary, had grown into an insurmountable burden. His creditors, though understanding of his good heart, could no longer wait. They needed what was owed, or a promise of payment he could no longer fulfill. The inevitable came quietly, without fanfare or harsh words. The landowner, a stern but fair man, arrived one morning. He spoke with a sad voice, acknowledging Gosaka's immense kindness, but explaining the simple truth of the accounts. Gosaka, the generous potter, could no longer afford to keep his workshop. The small plot of land, the kiln, the shed where his tools lay idle, all were forfeit. Gosaka sat amidst the broken shards of his once beautiful creations, the remnants of his craft all around him, a look of bewildered sorrow on his face. He had given and given until there was truly nothing left. His hands, which had shaped so much beauty for others, were now empty, still. His workshop, the very source of his capacity to give, was gone. He had believed that boundless generosity meant giving until nothing remained, until the well was dry, until the lamp consumed itself in its final, blinding flash. And now, he sat in the quiet poverty of that belief, with empty hands and a heart that felt not the joy of giving, but the profound ache of having nothing left to offer, not even his craft. He had poured himself out so completely, so absolutely, that he had, in his own gentle way, destroyed the very vessel from which he poured. The cheerful potter, the man with the expansive heart, now sat in silence, surrounded by the quiet echoes of a generosity that had forgotten to sustain itself. He had given until it hurt, and now it hurt not only him, but his family, and, in a deeper sense, the very community he had sought to serve, for the source of his kindness, his beautiful craft, had been extinguished. His story is a gentle reminder that even the most compassionate heart must learn the wisdom of balance, the art of sustainable giving. For what will we give tomorrow if we have given away everything today? For what will we give tomorrow if we have given away everything today? Gosaka sat in the quiet ruin of his workshop, the dust motes dancing in the slender beams of light that pierced the gloom. His empty hands, once so alive with the promise of creation, now felt heavy, useless. The silence of the shed, once filled with the rhythmic thump of clay, the gentle whir of the wheel, the crackle of the kiln, pressed in on him, a stark echo of his own internal emptiness. He had believed, with all the goodness of his heart, that generosity knew no bounds, that true giving meant pouring out oneself until nothing remained. And now, he understood the chilling truth of that belief. When nothing remained, nothing more could be given. The well was dry, the lamp had burned itself out, the vessel was shattered. A deep sorrow settled over him, heavier than any debt, more profound than any loss. It was not just the loss of his workshop, though that was a bitter ache. It was the crushing realization that his boundless love, his earnest desire to serve, had led him to this barren place. He had sought to uplift others, but in doing so, he had diminished himself, and by extension, his family, and ultimately, his capacity to continue the very service he cherished. The beautiful pots he had created, each one a testament to his skill and his heart, now seemed to mock him from the corners of his memory. They were gone, and with them, his means to create more. As the sun began its slow descent, painting the small open doorway in hues of orange and purple, a figure appeared, silhouetted against the fading light. It was a forest monk, his robes simple and worn, his presence exuding a profound calm. He carried nothing but a small begging bowl and a staff carved from a single piece of wood. His eyes, deep and compassionate, settled upon Gosaka, not with pity, but with a quiet understanding. The monk stepped into the workshop, his bare feet making no sound on the earthen floor. He looked at the empty shelves, the silent wheel, the cold kiln, and then back at Gosaka, whose head was bowed in despair. He did not speak for a long moment, allowing the heavy silence to settle, to be fully felt Then his voice, soft and clear like a mountain spring, broke the stillness. "Gosaka," the monk said, his tone gentle. "You have a generous heart. Your hands have brought beauty and utility to many in this village." Gosaka slowly lifted his head, his eyes red-rimmed and weary, meeting the monk's steady gaze. He offered a weak, desolate nod. "I tried to serve, Venerable One. I gave all that I had." The monk inclined his head slightly. "Indeed, you did, and your intention was pure. But now," he paused, his gaze sweeping over the empty workshop, then returning to Gosaka's empty hands. "If you have nothing, what will you give tomorrow?" The question hung in the air, not as a challenge, but as a gentle yet piercing inquiry. Gosaka stared at the monk, then at his own hands. "If you have nothing, what will you give tomorrow?" The words resonated within him, echoing the very ache he had been feeling. He had not considered tomorrow. He had only considered now, the immediate need, the present moment of giving. He had not understood that true generosity, sustainable compassion, requires foresight, a gentle stewardship of one's own resources. He thought of the lamp burning without pause, consuming its own oil. He thought of the empty vessel, unable to pour. He had been both the lamp and the vessel, burning himself out, emptying himself completely, without thought for the source, for the replenishment. He had equated self-deprivation with virtue, believing that any consideration of his own needs was a selfish act, a diminishing of his boundless heart. But the monk's simple question revealed the flaw in this belief. A generosity that consumes its source ultimately consumes itself, leaving nothing but a barren landscape. "I have nothing, Venerable One," Gosaka whispered, the truth of it a raw wound in his throat. "I have no clay, no wood, no kiln. I have no means to make a single pot, let alone feed my family." His voice cracked with the confession. The monk sat down opposite him, his posture calm and still. "To give is a beautiful act, Gosaka, but to give skillfully, to give sustainably, that is true wisdom. A river gives its water, but it must also be fed by the rains. A tree offers its fruit, but it must draw nourishment from the earth. If the river runs dry, if the tree withers, what then will they give?" Gosaka listened, the monk's words painting a new image in his mind. He had been like a torrent, rushing forth in a grand, emptying rush, believing that speed and volume were the marks of its greatness. But a torrent quickly dissipates, leaving behind only dry riverbeds. A steady stream, fed by a consistent spring, flows endlessly, nourishing all that it touches, day after day, year after year. He had been a torrent, and now he was dry. "I understood it as a test," Gosaka confessed, his voice barely audible. "A test of my devotion to give until it hurt, until nothing was left." "And did it serve its purpose?" the monk asked, his eyes soft. "Did it allow you to continue to serve, or did it extinguish your capacity to give?" Gosaka looked around the desolate workshop, the broken shards, the quiet, accusing tools. He remembered the worried look in his wife's eyes, the quiet deprivations of his children. He remembered the mounting debts, the whispers of concern. He had not only exhausted himself, but he had put his family in hardship, and he had lost the very means by which he could contribute his unique gift to the community. His act of boundless generosity had, paradoxically, rendered him bound and helpless. A quiet understanding, soft as the evening breeze, began to unfurl within him. It was not a thunderous revelation, but a gentle dawning, like the first pale light of morning. Self-preservation, was not selfishness. It was the very foundation of sustained service. To care for the vessel was to ensure its capacity to pour. To nurture the lamp was to ensure its continued light. I did not understand, Gosaka said, his voice filled with a quiet sorrow, but also a nascent hope. I thought my own needs were irrelevant. No need is irrelevant, Gosaka, the monk replied, rising slowly, especially the needs that sustain your capacity to serve. Your craft is a gift. To protect that gift, to nurture the hands that create it, to ensure the materials are available, that is not self-indulgence. That is wisdom. The monk turned to leave, pausing at the doorway where the last vestiges of twilight lingered. Tomorrow, Gosaka, he said, begin again. But this time, remember the river and remember the tree. Let your giving be a steady stream, nourished by a deep and abiding wellspring within yourself. And with that, the monk was gone, leaving Gosaka alone in the quiet darkness of his workshop, but no longer in the quiet darkness of his mind. The monk's words, a simple question, had illuminated a path he had never seen. The next morning, Gosaka did not sit in despair. He rose with a quiet resolve. He did not have clay or wood or a kiln, but he had his hands, and he had his skill. He had his wisdom. He went to a neighbor, not to ask for a handout, but to offer his expertise. I cannot make a pot for you yet, he said, his voice humble but firm, but I can help you mend your broken roof in exchange for a small portion of rice and perhaps some clay from the riverbank. Slowly, carefully, Gosaka began to rebuild. He worked for others, offering his strength and knowledge in exchange for the basic necessities and for the raw materials of his craft. He made a few pots, simple ones at first, and he sold some of them, not giving them all away. With the small earnings, he bought more clay, more wood, and enough rice for his family. He reserved a portion, always, to sustain his craft, to keep the well from running dry. His family noticed the change. His wife's eyes, once clouded with worry, now held a gentle, knowing warmth. Their children, though they still saw their father give to others, also saw him provide for their home, and they understood that his generosity was now rooted in a deeper, more sustainable wisdom. Gosaka's workshop slowly came back to life. The wheel began to turn, the kiln glowed, and the scent of firing clay once again filled the air. He still gave, with all the warmth of his generous heart. But now, his giving was discerning, mindful, sustainable. He gave what he could, without depleting his capacity to give again tomorrow. He became a steady stream, nourishing his community with a constant, reliable flow of beauty and utility, his spirit replenished, his craft thriving. He understood that true generosity was not an act of self-annihilation, but an art of balance, a dance between giving and receiving, ensuring that the wellspring of compassion would never run dry. His story reminds us that to serve others effectively, we must first learn the skill of self-preservation. For only when we are full can we truly pour, not just once, but over and over again, like a river that flows endlessly, sustained by its own quiet wisdom. Take a gentle breath now, feeling the air fill your lungs, and then release it, letting go of any tension. Feel your body supported, soft, and still. We turn now to another story, a story of a teacher whose boundless dedication to his community's children overshadowed the needs of his own. In a village where the scent of warm earth mingled with the quiet hum of diligent work, there lived a scholar named Upali. He was a man with a gentle spirit, his early 40s marked by an earnest, thoughtful expression, that often settled into a slight furrow between his brows. His plain robes, usually ink-stained, spoke of long hours spent bending over scrolls. His slender hands, accustomed to the delicate touch of parchment and brush, Upali's voice, calm and melodic, carried far when he explained a lesson, filling the air with the wisdom of ancient texts and the clarity of simple truths. He was the village teacher, and his dedication to the children of the community was absolute, a devotion he considered his sacred duty. From the first pale light of dawn, Upali's day began not with the quiet needs of his own small household, but with the expansive needs of the village's young minds. He would rise before the sun, his breath misting in the cool morning air, to prepare his lessons. Scrolls would be unrolled, stories carefully chosen, and intricate characters meticulously drawn on practice boards. His mind was a quiet river, flowing with knowledge, eager to irrigate the eager fields of young understanding. By the time the sun had fully climbed above the eastern hills, casting long golden shadows across the village square, Upali's small schoolhouse would be alive with the chatter and eager questions of children. Their faces, bright with curiosity, would turn to him, their eyes wide and trusting. And for Upali, there was no greater joy, no deeper fulfillment, than to see the spark of understanding ignite in a young mind. He would sit among them, a patient shepherd guiding his flock through the intricate pathways of language, numbers, and the stories of their ancestors. He taught them to read the stars, to understand the flow of the seasons, to write the beautiful characters of their tongue, and to discern the subtle truths hidden within parables. He refused any payment for his service, believing that knowledge was a gift to be freely given, a light to be shared without expectation of earthly return. This belief, noble and pure, only deepened the village's reverence for him. Parents spoke of him with hushed admiration, their gratitude a warm cloak around his shoulders. Upali, in turn, found his greatest reward in their progress, in their growing wisdom, in the simple, heartfelt "thank you, teacher," that followed him like a gentle echo at the end of each day. His teaching hours stretched long, often past the fading light of afternoon. There were always extra lessons for a struggling student, a quiet word of encouragement for a shy one, or a lively debate with the most inquisitive. Even after the last child had scampered home, their voices fading into the evening air, Upali would remain in the schoolhouse. He would clean the boards, arrange the scrolls, and prepare for the morrow, his brow furrowed in concentration, lost in the quiet pursuit of perfect lessons. Sometimes, the moon would be a silver sliver in the sky before he finally closed the wooden doors, the scent of dust and old parchment clinging to his robes. But as Upali walked the familiar path home, a different kind of quiet settled around him. It was not the serene quiet of contemplation, but a deeper, more profound silence that seemed to have taken root in his own small dwelling. He had a wife, Maya, a woman of enduring patience and gentle strength, and 2 children, a boy named Kiran, quick-witted and observant, and a girl named Lila, whose eyes held a deep, quiet longing. They would be waiting for him, as always. Maya would have a simple meal prepared, the warmth of the hearth a welcome comfort against the evening chill. Kiran and Lila would sit quietly at the small wooden table, their heads bowed, not in study, but in a kind of resigned anticipation. Upali would enter, his mind still buzzing with the day's lessons, his body weary, but his spirit still alight from the shared joy of learning. "Father," Kiran would murmur, his voice soft, "you are home." "Yes, my son," Upali would reply, a faint smile touching his lips. He would wash his ink-stained hands and join them at the table. The meal would be eaten in a quiet rhythm, the only sounds the clinking of bowls and the soft murmur of the wind outside. Upali would speak of the day's triumphs in the schoolhouse, a difficult sum finally solved, a beautiful poem recited, a new story learned. His children would listen, their eyes fixed on his animated face, catching every word, but their own questions, their own small triumphs and confusions from their day remained unasked. For Upali, his work for the community was so encompassing, so all-consuming, that it had subtly begun to eclipse the smaller, more intimate duties of his own home. He genuinely believed that by dedicating every waking hour to the village's children, he was fulfilling a higher purpose, a grander responsibility that somehow absolved him of the more personal ones. He was teaching the children, and in his mind, his own children were simply part of that larger whole. His boundless service to the community, he reasoned, was a service to all, including his family, even if it meant a temporary, necessary sacrifice of his direct presence in their lives. But the children, Kiran and Leela, did not understand the grander logic of communal service. They only knew the absence of their father's voice, the quiet lack of his hand guiding their own when they tried to draw a character, the yearning for a story told only to them, by him. Their clothes, though clean, were often mended. Their books were few, and their lessons were learned not from their brilliant teacher father, but from their patient mother, or from observing the older children in the village. They watched the village children walk home with their father, full of laughter and shared knowledge, and a quiet, unarticulated sadness would settle in their hearts. Maya, Upali's wife, understood the depth of his devotion. She knew his heart was pure, his intentions noble, but she also saw the shadows growing longer in her children's eyes. The way Lila would cling to her skirt when Upali left for the schoolhouse. The way Kiran would gaze wistfully at the empty chair at the evening meal. She carried the burden of their unacknowledged needs, her own quiet wisdom telling her that even the brightest light, if focused too intensely outwards, could leave its own immediate surroundings in shadow. She would mend their clothes, teach them the rudiments of letters and numbers by the flickering light of a single lamp, and tell them stories of their ancestors, her voice soft and steady, trying to fill the void left by their absent father. She never spoke a word of complaint to Upali, for she loved him and knew his heart was good. But her weary smile, her quiet sighs, and the subtle lines etched around her eyes told a story of silent, unmet needs. Upali, caught in the radiant glow of his public service, remained largely blind to this growing sadness. When he saw his children quiet, he attributed it to their gentle natures. When he saw them learning from Maya, he felt a quiet pride in her dedication. He believed they understood, that they shared in the glory of his larger mission. He saw their quietness as acceptance, not as a reflection of unmet longing. Any fleeting pang of guilt, any whisper of doubt, was quickly dismissed by the overwhelming validation he received from the grateful parents and bright-eyed students in his schoolhouse. His community service was a powerful current, sweeping him along, convincing him that all other streams must necessarily feed into it, or at least recede into the background. And so, the gentle scholar, with his earnest, thoughtful expression and his calm, melodic voice, continued to pour himself out for the village's children. He was a lamp, shining brightly for all to see, illuminating the path of knowledge for every young mind that came to him. But in the quiet corners of his own home, the light grew dim, and a subtle, unspoken darkness began to deepen, a silent testament to the unseen cost of his boundless, yet unbalanced, dedication. He was a teacher of many, but a father to few, and the quiet sadness in his own household grew with each passing day, like a vine that slowly, imperceptibly, begins to twine around the heart. The subtle, unspoken darkness continued to deepen in Upali's home, a quiet, almost imperceptible shadow that stretched longer with each passing day. It was not a darkness born of malice, but of absence, of an earnest heart so fully given to the wide world that it had forgotten the small, precious garden at its own feet. Upali, in his profound dedication to the village's children, continued to see his own family as part of the larger whole, rather than as a distinct, tender bloom requiring specific, dedicated nourishment. He saw his wife, Maya, as a strong and capable woman, a steadfast anchor for their home. He saw his children, Kiran and Lila, as gentle souls, thriving in the calm atmosphere she created, learning quietly from her patient guidance. He had convinced himself that his monumental contribution to the community was a gift to them as well, a legacy of knowledge and virtue that would somehow compensate for his physical and emotional distance. The village, of course, revered him. Parents spoke of his tireless devotion, their voices filled with gratitude. The children, eager and bright, would gather around him, their faces alight with admiration, their small hands pressing little drawings or freshly picked wildflowers into his. These moments, these affirmations of his purpose, were a powerful balm to his spirit, reinforcing his belief that he was on the true path. He was needed, he was valued, he was making a difference. This constant validation, like a strong wind, propelled his ship ever forward, away from the quiet harbor of his own home, towards the open, boundless sea of communal service. But the unasked questions in Kiran's eyes, the quiet longing in Lila's small sighs, the weary, understanding smile that often touched Maya's lips, these were the subtle currents beneath the surface, unseen by the busy helmsman. They were the gentle tremors that spoke of an imbalance, a quiet yearning for a light that was focused, warm, and singularly their own. They did not begrudge him his noble work, for they too saw the good he did. But a child's heart speaks a language of immediate presence, of shared moments, of hands held and stories told in the hushed intimacy of their own hearth. And these, for Kiran and Lila, were increasingly rare. One day, a nun came to the village, a wandering bhikkhuni, whose robes were the color of the forest floor, and whose eyes held the serene depth of ancient wisdom. She moved with a quiet grace, her steps light upon the dusty paths, her presence a soft ripple in the bustling life of the community. She did not speak much, but she observed everything, her gaze lingering on the small details that others often overlooked. She spent several days in the village, offering gentle blessings, sharing quiet reflections, and simply being present. She saw Upali in his schoolhouse, surrounded by a throng of eager children, his voice calm and melodic as he explained the intricacies of the alphabet. She saw the light in his eyes, the passion that illuminated his face as he guided their young minds. She saw the gratitude of the parents, the way they bowed deeply to him, offering small tokens of appreciation. And she saw, too, the late hours he kept, the single lamp burning in the schoolhouse long after darkness had fallen, his silhouette bent over scrolls. Then, one evening, as the first stars began to prickle the deepening blue of the sky, the nun found herself walking past Upali's small home. The hearth fire within cast a warm, flickering glow through the open doorway, and she heard the soft murmur of a woman's voice telling a story. She paused, unseen, listening. It was Maya, recounting an ancient tale to Kiran and Lila, their small forms huddled close to her, their faces illuminated by the dancing firelight. The nun watched as Maya patiently helped Kiran trace a letter in the dust on the floor, her own hand guiding his, her voice gentle as she corrected him. Lila, meanwhile, leaned against her mother, her head resting on Maya's shoulder, her eyes wide with the magic of the story. The scene was one of quiet intimacy, of tender connection, yet the nun also noted the absence of another. Upali was not there. His lamp, she knew, was still burning brightly in the schoolhouse, a beacon for the village's children. The next morning, as Upali walked towards the schoolhouse, his mind already turning to the day's lessons, the nun appeared before him. She bowed slightly, her hands pressed together in a gesture of peace. "Good morning, esteemed teacher," she said, her voice soft, like the rustle of leaves. "You dedicate yourself with such fervor to the children of this village. Their minds are like fertile ground under your care." Upali, surprised but pleased, returned her bow. "It is my joy, Venerable One. To guide these young minds, to plant the seeds of knowledge, is the highest calling." He gestured towards the schoolhouse, a proud light in his eyes. "They are all my children, in a way." The nun was quiet for a moment, her gaze resting not on the schoolhouse, but on a small, vibrant wildflower pushing its way through a crack in the dusty path. "Indeed," she replied, her voice gentle, yet it carried a subtle, resonant depth. "And yet, esteemed teacher, you teach everyone's children, except your own." The words, spoken so softly, were not an accusation, but a quiet, clear observation. They fell upon Upali's ears not like a judgment, but like a single, perfectly aimed drop of water, creating a ripple in the still pond of his long-held assumptions. He stopped. His hand, which had been reaching to adjust his scroll bag, froze in midair. He looked at the nun, then back towards his own home, which was now out of sight, tucked behind a cluster of bamboo. "You teach everyone's children, except your own." The phrase echoed in his mind, stripping away all his carefully constructed justifications, all his noble intentions. He had believed that his service to the greater community encompassed his own family, that his larger mission somehow absolved him of the smaller, more direct duties. But the nun's words, so simple, so direct, illuminated a profound truth he had overlooked. He had been so focused on tending the communal field that he had allowed his own small garden to wither from neglect. A flush of warmth rose to his face, not of shame, but of a quiet, startling recognition. He thought of Kiran's unasked questions, of Lila's quiet longing, of Maya's weary yet uncomplaining smile. He saw them, truly saw them, not as part of the abstract village children, but as his own flesh and blood, yearning for the warmth of his presence, the light of his dedicated attention. He had given them the grand, distant gift of his communal service, but had withheld the intimate, tangible gift of his fatherhood. The nun remained silent, her gaze still on the wildflower, allowing the truth of her words to settle, unhurried, into the quiet space between them. She did not press, did not explain further. The seed was planted, and now it was Upali's task to nurture it. Upali stood there for a long moment, the sounds of the waking village, a distant rooster's crow, the gentle murmur of a passing cart, fading into the background of his sudden, profound internal reckoning. He saw himself, for the first time, as a man pouring water into many vessels, while his own, though not empty, was far from full, and its contents were not the clear, sparkling water of his direct love. He had taught his students to balance equations, to understand the harmony of numbers and words, yet he had failed to balance the equation of his own life, the harmony of his own responsibilities. Slowly, Upali turned back to the nun, a new light in his eyes, a light of humility and dawning understanding. He bowed again, deeper this time, a gesture of profound gratitude. "Thank you, Venerable One," he said, his voice a little softer, a little more vulnerable than before. "Your words, they are a mirror, showing me what I had refused to see." That day, Upali taught his lessons with his usual diligence and passion, but something had shifted within him. His mind, though still focused on his students, held a new awareness, a quiet determination to reorder his priorities. He still stayed late, but not as late. He still cleaned the boards, but he did not linger over every scroll. He moved with a new sense of purpose, not of rushing, but of conscious allocation. When he arrived home that evening, the moon was barely a faint crescent in the sky. Maya was still telling a story by the fire, her voice a soft lullaby. Kiran and Lila were nestled close. But this time, instead of simply joining them at the table, Upali knelt beside his children. He gently placed a hand on Kiran's head, ruffling his hair. He stroked Lila's cheek. "My dears," he said, his voice a little rough with emotion, "forgive your father. I have been so busy teaching the stars, I forgot to tend the flowers in my own garden." Kiran and Lila looked up, their eyes wide with surprise, then with a dawning, hesitant hope. Upali then took the time to ask them about their day, not just as a formality, but with genuine, focused interest. He listened to Kiran's small struggle with a tangled knot and to Lila's quiet joy at finding a particularly shiny stone. He sat with them, truly present, until the embers of the fire glowed low and the children's eyelids grew heavy. He read them a story from a small, treasured scroll he had brought from the schoolhouse, his voice calm and melodic. But this time, it was a melody meant only for them. From that day forward, Upali began to balance his time, not with a sense of duty, but with a newfound joy. He still dedicated himself wholeheartedly to the village's children, for his passion for teaching remained undimmed. But now, he understood that true wisdom, true compassion, must first blossom in the fertile soil of one's own heart, within one's own family, before it could truly radiate outwards to enrich the wider world. He learned that the light he offered to the community was not diminished by also shining brightly in his own home. Rather, it was strengthened, made more authentic, more sustainable. His children began to thrive, not just in their lessons, but in their spirits, their eyes reflecting the rekindled light of their father's presence. Maya's weary smile slowly softened, becoming a smile of quiet contentment, the subtle lines around her eyes easing with the return of shared burdens and shared joys. Upali had learned a profound truth, that the truest measure of a teacher's wisdom is not only in how brightly he illuminates the path for others, but also in how faithfully he tends the light within his own home, ensuring that those closest to his heart are not left in shadow. His service became whole, balanced, and sustainable, rooted deeply in the love and presence he offered to his own. Take a gentle breath now, feeling the air fill your lungs, and then release it, letting go of any tension. Feel your body supported, soft and still. Allow the wisdom of Upali's journey to settle within you, the understanding that our closest responsibilities are often the foundation upon which all other service is built. We turn now to another story of a man whose courage was boundless, but whose understanding of true heroism was still unfolding. A man named Moggallana, whose spirit was as strong as the river itself, and who would soon face its ultimate test. He was a man of action, of decisive movement, Often found at the heart of any crisis, his presence a rallying point for those in distress. But the greatest crisis he would face, and the greatest lesson he would learn, would come not from his strength, but from the limits of his own fierce determination. The river, usually a gentle ribbon of silver that wound its way through the valley, nourishing fields and reflecting the quiet sky, began to stir. For days, the rains had been relentless, a soft, insistent drumming on the thatched roofs, a ceaseless whisper through the bamboo groves. The villagers had watched with a quiet apprehension as the water level rose, slowly at first, then with an increasing, ominous speed. The river, once a friend, was now growing restless, its murmurs deepening into a roar. Its banks, usually green and firm, began to soften, to crumble, to disappear beneath the churning, muddy brown. In this time of growing unease, one man stood out, his presence a beacon of calm determination amidst the rising tide of worry. This was Moggallana, a man whose very name was synonymous with strength and unwavering resolve. He was in his mid-30s, his build sturdy, his movements quick and decisive, even in moments of great stress. His eyes, usually cheerful, now held a glint of serious purpose, constantly scanning the swollen river, assessing its temper, its intentions. He wore practical, sturdy clothing, the kind that could withstand the elements, and he moved with the confidence of one who had faced the river's moods many times before. When the first trickle of water began to creep over the lowest banks, Moggallana was already there, directing the placement of sandbags, his voice firm and commanding, yet devoid of panic. He organized the evacuation of livestock from the low-lying pastures, his strong hands guiding the anxious animals to higher ground. He was everywhere, a whirlwind of focused energy, his mind clear, his body tireless. He saw the fear in the eyes of his neighbors, the quiet desperation as their homes, their livelihoods, began to be threatened by the encroaching water. And in that fear, Moggallana felt a fierce, protective surge. He would not let the river claim his people. He would not. The rain did not cease. It intensified, a thick curtain of water falling from a sky that had turned a bruised, somber gray. The river, no longer a ribbon, became a raging brown beast, tearing at its banks, swallowing the land with a voracious hunger. The gentle whisper had become a deafening roar, a primal sound that vibrated through the very earth. Trees, uprooted and helpless, were swept downstream, their branches flailing like desperate arms. Houses, once firmly rooted, began to groan, their foundations undermined by the relentless current. Panic, once held at bay by Moggallana's steady presence, now began to creep into the village. Children cried, their small voices lost beneath the roar of the flood. Elders, their faces etched with lines of worry, huddled together, their prayers soft and urgent. The water was everywhere now, swirling through the streets, rising higher and higher, claiming pathways, then courtyards, then the very floors of homes. Moggallana, however, did not falter. He moved through the rising water, often chest deep, his strength seemingly inexhaustible. He became the village's anchor, its lifeline. He fashioned makeshift rafts from doors and fallen logs, his hands working with furious speed. He ferried families across treacherous currents, his powerful strokes cutting through the swirling chaos. He rescued a young mother clinging to a rooftop, her baby clutched tightly to her chest, their faces pale with terror. He pulled an old man from his collapsing home, guiding him to safety with a reassuring grip. He saved a child's beloved wooden toy, retrieving it from the swirling debris, knowing that such small acts of kindness could mend a fragile spirit. Dozens of villagers, in the span of hours, owed their lives, their safety, to Moggallana's boundless courage. He worked without pause, without thought for himself. Others offered to help, to spell him, to share the immense burden. But Moggallana waved them off, his eyes fixed on the next rescue, the next family in peril. "Go, help the others get to the high ground," he would shout over the din of the flood. "I will manage here. I must." He believed, with an unwavering conviction, that his duty was to save everyone else first. His own safety, his own well-being, was secondary, almost irrelevant in the face of such widespread need. He saw himself as the bulwark, the only one strong enough, determined enough, to stand against the relentless power of the river. To rest, to evacuate himself, would be to abandon his post, to betray the trust placed in him, to fail his community. His heroism, in his mind, demanded nothing less than absolute, self-sacrificing dedication. As the day wore on and the rain showed no sign of relenting, the floodwaters continued their ascent. The village, once a vibrant collection of homes and hearths, was now a desolate, watery landscape, only the highest rooftops and the very peak of the communal shrine remaining above the churning brown. The air was thick with the smell of damp earth and destruction, a chilling silence broken only by the incessant roar of the water and the occasional crash of a collapsing structure. Moggallana's body, though immensely strong, began to protest. His muscles screamed with fatigue, his limbs heavy with the cold and the ceaseless effort. His breath came in ragged gasps, his chest aching. But he pushed through the pain, through the weariness, his will overriding the demands of his body. He saw one last family, stranded on a precarious ledge, their faces pale with terror. A mother and her 2 small children, shivering, soaked, their hope dwindling with every passing moment. "Hold on," he yelled, his voice hoarse, but still imbued with his fierce determination. "I am coming." He plunged back into the deepest current, swimming towards them, his powerful strokes now less precise, more desperate. The water, swirling with debris and powerful undertows, fought against him, pushing him back, pulling him down. He felt the cold seep into his bones, numbing his fingers, his toes. His vision blurred, his head throbbed. He could feel the last reserves of his strength draining away, like grains of sand through a cracked vessel. He reached the ledge, pulling himself up with a final, monumental effort. He helped the mother and her children onto the small, makeshift raft he had fashioned, pushing them towards a higher, safer point where other villagers waited. He watched them go, a small sense of triumph mixing with his profound exhaustion. He had saved them. He had saved them all. But as he turned to follow, a new wave, a monstrous surge of water, rose up from the depths of the river. It was an unexpected, furious swell, born from some distant collapse upstream. It struck Moggallana with the force of a battering ram, ripping him from the ledge, pulling him into the churning depths. He gasped, a mouthful of icy, muddy water filling his lungs, choking him. He struggled, fought against the current with every last fiber of his being, but the river was too strong, too vast, too powerful. It spun him around, tossed him like a discarded leaf, dragging him down into the terrifying embrace of the flood. He felt himself tumbling, disoriented, losing all sense of up or down. The roar of the water filled his ears, then faded into a muffled, distant drone. His vision went dark, then flickered with strange, ethereal lights. He felt his consciousness dim, his will to fight slowly, irrevocably, fading into the cold, dark silence of the river's grip. He had given everything, truly everything, until nothing remained. He had believed he must save everyone else first, and in doing so, He had forgotten to save himself. Then, a sudden jolt, a rough, desperate grab. Hands, strong hands, pulling at him, tugging him upwards, towards the surface, the sound of voices, muffled at first, then growing louder, more urgent. He coughed, sputtered, retched, spewing out water, his lungs burning, screaming for air. He felt the rough texture of a rope against his skin, the sharp sting of cold air on his drenched face. He was being pulled, dragged, towards the safety of a boat, towards the solid, blessed earth of higher ground. He lay there, shivering uncontrollably, his body bruised and battered, his mind a hazy, confused muddle. He had been swept away, lost to the river's fury, on the very brink of oblivion. He was alive, yes, but barely. His breath came in shallow, painful gasps. His eyes fluttered open, seeing only the blurry outlines of concerned faces, hearing only the distant, fading roar of the river, now a sound of haunting memory. He was rescued, yes, but he was a broken vessel, emptied and almost shattered by his own boundless, yet ultimately misguided heroism. The river, in its terrible wisdom, had shown him the ultimate consequence of giving until nothing remains, of forgetting that even the hero must first remain capable, must first remain whole. He lay there, shivering uncontrollably, his body bruised and battered, his mind a hazy, confused muddle. He had been swept away, lost to the river's fury, on the very brink of oblivion. He was alive, yes, but barely. His breath came in shallow, painful gasps. His eyes fluttered open, seeing only the blurry outlines of concerned faces, hearing only the distant, fading roar of the river, now a sound of haunting memory. He was rescued, yes, but he was a broken vessel, emptied and almost shattered by his own boundless, yet ultimately misguided heroism. The river, in its terrible wisdom, had shown him the ultimate consequence of giving until nothing remains, of forgetting that even the hero must first remain capable, must first remain whole. Days blurred into a slow, quiet recovery. Moggallana lay on a simple mat within a makeshift shelter, wrapped in warm blankets, his body aching, his head still light with the echoes of his near drowning. The water had retreated, leaving behind a landscape of mud and debris, but the sun had returned, casting a gentle warmth over the ravaged village. His friends, those he had saved, brought him small bowls of nourishing broth, their faces filled with gratitude and quiet concern. They spoke in hushed tones, remembering his courage, but also the terrible moment when he was swallowed by the flood, the moment they thought they had lost him forever. He listened to their words, their soft praises, but a deep, unsettling silence had settled within him. He had believed his actions were noble, the highest form of service. He had pushed himself beyond every limit, certain that such sacrifice was the essence of a hero. Yet, in that chilling moment of tumbling, disoriented, into the river's icy grip, he had understood a truth far more profound than any he had known before. He had been utterly useless, a burden, not a savior. Had it not been for the quick thinking of others, the strong hands that had thrown the rope, he would have been lost, permanently incapable of helping anyone ever again. He had come so close to becoming one more victim, another body for the river to claim. As he lay there, slowly regaining his strength, a quiet presence entered the shelter. It was the Buddha, his robes worn, his expression serene, his eyes holding a depth of understanding that seemed to encompass the entire world. He sat beside Moggallana, not speaking for a long time, simply observing, his gaze gentle and accepting. The afternoon light filtered through the gaps in the shelter's roof, painting patterns of gold and shadow on the mud floor. The air was still, carrying only the distant sounds of rebuilding, the soft tap of hammers, the quiet murmur of voices. Finally, the Buddha spoke, his voice soft, clear, like the chime of a distant bell. "Moggallana," he said, his tone devoid of judgment, only compassion. "You are a man of immense courage, a heart overflowing with the desire to protect. You plunged into the torrent, risked everything to save others." Moggallana closed his eyes, a pang of shame mixing with the memory of his near death. He had almost failed. He had almost become the very thing he fought against: helplessness. "And yet," the Buddha continued, his words like a gentle stream flowing over smooth stones, "what would have happened if the river had claimed you? What would have happened to those you were yet to save had you not been pulled back from its embrace?" Moggallana opened his eyes, looking at the Buddha's calm face. He had no answer. The question hung in the air, heavy with its own truth. The Buddha leaned forward slightly, his gaze unwavering. "A drowned man saves no one, Moggallana. Your first duty, your most fundamental responsibility, is to remain capable, to preserve your own vessel, so that you may continue to pour for others, again and again." The words resonated deep within Moggallana's very being, echoing the river's terrible lesson. A drowned man saves no one. Your first duty is to remain capable. It was not a reprimand, but an unveiling, a truth so simple, so profound, that it shattered the foundation of his old beliefs. He had confused martyrdom with heroism. He had believed that the ultimate act of service was self-annihilation, believing that only by completely erasing himself could he truly help. But the Buddha's words revealed the fallacy of this path. A hero who is lost, who is broken beyond repair, is a hero no more. A well that is emptied until it is dry provides no water. A lamp that has consumed all its oil gives no light. He spent the next weeks in quiet contemplation, his body mending, his spirit slowly realigning. He watched the villagers rebuild. He listened to the stories of how they had helped each other, how they had worked together, sharing the heavy loads, lifting the fallen timbers. He saw how many hands made light work, how a shared burden was no burden at all, but a web of interconnected strength. He began to understand that his refusal of help, his insistence on bearing the entire weight alone, had not been a sign of strength, but a subtle form of arrogance, a denial of the community's own capacity to care, to contribute. As his strength returned, Moggallana did not immediately leap back into action with his old, furious intensity. Instead, he moved with a new thoughtfulness, a quiet deliberation. When the next heavy rains threatened to swell the river, he was among the first to organize the defenses. But this time, he did not work alone. He gathered a team, assigning tasks, teaching the younger villagers how to reinforce the riverbanks, how to monitor the water levels, how to build sturdy, temporary shelters on higher ground. He shared his knowledge, his experience, his strength, but he also accepted the contributions of others. He listened to their suggestions, allowing them to take on responsibilities, trusting their judgment. He learned to assess the risks, not just for others, but for himself. He understood that a hero does not rush blindly into danger, but approaches it with a clear mind, a strategic plan, and a wise understanding of his own limits. He learned to accept offers of rest, to delegate tasks, to step back when another could step forward. His compassion, once a wild, untamed torrent that threatened to consume him, now became a deep, steady river, flowing with purpose and sustainable wisdom. Moggallana was still courageous, still dedicated, but his heroism was now tempered by a profound understanding of capability. He knew that to truly serve, one must first remain whole. To light the path for others, one must ensure one's own lamp has a steady supply of oil. He learned that the highest form of service was not to sacrifice oneself on the altar of need, but to cultivate a resilient, replenished spirit, a strong and capable body, so that one could continue to offer aid, not for a fleeting moment of glory, but for a lifetime of steady, compassionate contribution. He had found true heroism, not in self-destruction, but in self-preservation, in the quiet wisdom of staying capable. Take a gentle breath now, feeling the air fill your lungs, and then release it, letting go of any tension. Feel your body supported, soft and still. We turn now to another quiet lesson, one woven into the very fabric of family. We journey to the home of Bada, the selfless mother. Bada was a woman whose every waking moment was dedicated to her children. Her days were a ceaseless rhythm of tending, nurturing, providing. She woke before the sun, preparing meals, mending clothes, ensuring every need was met, every comfort provided. She believed that a mother's love was boundless, a spring that should never run dry, a force that should erase all traces of self for the sake of her beloved little ones. She gave everything, her food, her rest, her dreams, until she became, in her own home, almost invisible, a mere shadow moving through the rooms, a servant to the happiness of her family, forgetting that the deepest love also teaches connection and the quiet dignity of a mother who remains whole. Elder Kassapa had spent decades resolving every village dispute, attending every crisis, and offering advice for every problem. Believing his constant presence, his tireless intervention, was essential for the village's harmony and progress. He had carried the weight of the community's problems for so long that his back was indeed slightly stooped, not just from age, but from the invisible burdens he bore. He aged rapidly, the lines on his face deepening with every worry, every disagreement he sought to mend, every fear he sought to soothe. He struggled to let go, convinced that chaos would ensue if he did not personally manage every situation, thereby preventing others from stepping up, from finding their own solutions, from cultivating their own wisdom. He was like an ancient tree whose branches reached so wide and so low that no new saplings could thrive beneath its shade. One evening, as the last light of day softened the edges of the world and the air grew cool with the promise of night, Kassapa sat by the village well, observing the quiet comings and goings. He watched a young mother patiently teach her child to draw water, their hands intertwined on the rope. He saw two youths resolve a minor disagreement over a lost tool with a quiet conversation, without seeking his counsel. A sense of unease mingled with a deep, bone-weary fatigue within him. He had always believed his constant vigilance, his endless efforts, were the highest form of service. But the quiet hum of the village, managing itself, settling its own rhythms, now felt almost alien to him, a landscape he had not allowed to fully form. A younger monk, whose robes were the simple color of earth and whose eyes held a quiet, discerning light, approached the well. He drew a cup of water, offering a silent blessing to the wellspring, then turned to Kassapa. "Elder Kassapa," the monk said, his voice soft, like the rustle of leaves in a gentle breeze. "You have served this village with unwavering devotion, a true pillar of wisdom and strength." Kassapa nodded slowly, a sigh escaping his lips. "It is my duty, young one, to ensure the harmony, to guide the path." The monk took a sip of water, his gaze steady, gentle. "Indeed. And yet, Elder, If you are always the one to lift the stone, when do others learn the strength of their own backs? If you are always the one to light the path, when do others learn to trust the light within their own hearts? Kassapa looked at the monk, his brow furrowed, a flicker of defensiveness rising within him. But chaos would come. Disputes would fester. The village would lose its way. The monk smiled, a serene, unhurried expression. Perhaps, elder, by holding the reins so tightly, you have inadvertently prevented others from learning to steer. Do you not trust them to find their own balance, to discover their own wisdom, to step into their own capacity to serve? The question hung in the evening air, not as an accusation, but as a clear, still reflection. Do you not trust others to serve? The words settled deep within Kassapa's heart, unwrapping a truth he had long avoided. His fear of chaos, his need to control, had not been pure service, but a subtle lack of trust. He had believed that his constant intervention was essential, but in truth, it had prevented others from developing their own wisdom, their own capacity to lead, to mend, to grow. He had been like a gardener who pulled every weed, tended every sprout, but never allowed the garden to truly find its own wild, resilient beauty. He had been so focused on protecting the village from perceived disarray that he had stifled its potential for self-reliance. Kassapa sat in silence, watching the young mother and child walk away, their footsteps light. He saw the two youths laughing now, their disagreement forgotten. He looked at his own gnarled hands that had held so many burdens, resolved so many conflicts. He understood then that true leadership was not about being indispensable, but about fostering the indispensability of the whole. It was about stepping back, not abandoning, but creating space for new growth, for shared responsibility, for the quiet blossoming of collective wisdom. In the days and weeks that followed, a subtle shift occurred in Elder Kassapa. He still offered his wisdom, but he did so differently. He listened more, spoke less. He observed, and when a problem arose, he often let others grapple with it, offering a gentle question, a guiding thought, rather than an immediate solution. He encouraged the younger villagers to form their own councils, to take on responsibilities, to mediate disputes among themselves. He smiled as he watched them falter, then find their footing, growing stronger, more confident, more capable with each challenge they met. The village did not descend into chaos. Instead, it bloomed with a new vitality, a deeper sense of shared ownership and collective strength. Kassapa found a peace he had never known, a lightness in his heart, as he allowed the community to find its own way, interweaving his wisdom with the burgeoning wisdom of others. He learned that the truest service was to empower, to trust, to let go, and this wisdom, this quiet understanding, echoed through the lessons learned by all who had walked this path. Just as Elder Kassapa learned to trust the community to find its own harmony, so too did Kunda, the forest protector, learn to trust the community with the sacred grove. Kunda, who had once guarded the forest with a stern, possessive hand, attacking anyone who dared to touch even a fallen branch, came to understand that true protection was not about isolation and fear, but about shared stewardship and deep respect. He saw that when the villagers were allowed to participate in its care, to gather fallen wood for warmth, to forage for herbs with reverence, they became its most devoted guardians. The forest thrived not under his sole, zealous watch, but through the collective love and mindful interaction of the very people who depended upon it. He learned that a forest protected by many hands, understood by many hearts, was far more resilient and vibrant than one guarded by fear and exclusion. His stern expression softened, his gaze becoming one of shared purpose, realizing that protection, like service, was a tapestry woven by many threads, and this thread of interconnectedness, of shared wisdom, wove itself also into the life of Pada, the selfless mother. She, who had given everything of herself until she became invisible, a mere servant to her children's happiness, learned that true nurturing required her to remain whole, to be visible, to be present, not as an empty vessel, but as a full and radiant source of love. She began to care for herself, to rest, to replenish her own spirit, understanding that by doing so, she modeled a profound truth for her children, that self-respect and self-care are not selfish, but essential for a life of sustained love and contribution. Her children, seeing her renewed strength, her quiet joy, began to offer their help, to share in the household duties, learning not just to receive, but also to give. Pada learned that a mother's greatest gift was not self-annihilation, but the vibrant, enduring presence of a woman who nurtured herself as compassionately as she nurtured her family, becoming a guiding light, not a fading shadow. And so, we see that the wisdom gleaned by Bhadia, the village healer, who learned that a lamp consumes itself if it burns without pause, reminds us to preserve our own oil, to rest, to replenish. Puna, the bridge builder, taught us that a bridge built for others means little if the bridge to one's own family is burned, reminding us to balance grand gestures with close connections. Sumana, the grain keeper, showed us that an empty vessel cannot pour, urging us to fill ourselves first, so we may truly give. Visakha, the night watchman, learned that even the sun accepts the moon's help, teaching us to share our burdens and accept the support of others. Gosaka, the generous potter, discovered that skillful generosity means maintaining the capacity to continue giving, to be a steady stream, not an emptying torrent. Upali, the teacher's burden, realized that true wisdom begins at home, reminding us that service to the community should not neglect those closest to our hearts. Moggallana, the flood hero, understood that a drowned man saves no one, showing us that true heroism lies in remaining capable, in preserving our own ability to help. Elder Kassapa, the tireless elder, found peace in trusting others, in stepping back to foster self-reliance and collective wisdom. Kunda, the forest protector, learned that true preservation comes from shared stewardship and communal love, not from isolation or fear. And Pada, the selfless mother, understood that by nurturing herself, she became a more vibrant, present, and effective source of love and wisdom for her family. Each of these gentle parables, woven together like threads in a rich tapestry, reveals the profound truth of sustainable service, that true giving flows not from an anxious striving, not from a frantic emptying of oneself, but from a wellspring of inner balance, self-care, and quiet strength. It is the wisdom of the middle way, avoiding the extremes of selfish hoarding and self-destructive sacrifice. It is the understanding that by nurturing ourselves, by honoring our own needs, by setting wise boundaries, and by accepting the support of others, we cultivate an inexhaustible capacity to truly serve the world. This journey, from depletion to wholeness, from anxious striving to peaceful effectiveness, culminates not in a final act of grand sacrifice, but in a tranquil understanding that a replenished spirit, a strong body, a balanced mind, and a heart full of self-compassion are the very foundations of boundless, enduring service. We learn that service is not a burden to be borne, but a natural outflow of a life well lived, a heart well tended, a spirit continually renewed. Take a gentle breath now, feeling the air fill your lungs completely, and then release it, letting go of any remaining tension in your body. Feel your shoulders soften, your jaw relax. Let your hands rest lightly, your feet settle. Allow the wisdom of these stories to sink deep within you, not as demands or obligations, but as gentle invitations. Invitations to rest when you are weary, to ask for help when the load is heavy, to nourish yourself so that you may nourish others. Feel your body supported, soft and still. Feel a sense of deep peace settling within you. A quiet strength that recognizes the interconnectedness of all beings and the profound importance of tending to your own inner garden. You are worthy of care. You are worthy of rest. You are worthy of wholeness. And from that wholeness, your capacity to serve, to love, to contribute will flow like an endless, gentle river, nourishing all that it touches. There is nothing you need to do, nothing to fix, no one you need to become. Simply be. Be here in this quiet moment, knowing that by nurturing yourself, you are cultivating an inexhaustible capacity to truly serve the world, not from a place of burden, but from a place of spacious, quiet strength. Let this understanding settle deep within your heart, like the calm surface of a still, clear lake, reflecting the boundless sky.